Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Council had a closed session prior to this, so I'll reconvene the meeting at 7 p.m. And I will read the land acknowledgement. As visitors on this land, the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury acknowledges that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, collectively known as Three Forest Confederacy. We recognize the Huron-Wendat, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, and good health with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So, we're on to 4.3. There is no motions arising from closed. We're on to 5, adoption agenda. So I have recommendation that the regular council and committee whole agenda dated April 15, 2025 be adopted as printed. And mover and seconder, please, to put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Harper. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We are on to declaration of pecuniary interest and their general nature, so you declare now or when the issue comes up. And I will just see, I see that we have one declaration right now by Councillor Harper in regard to TR 2025-17. Further declarations at this time? Seeing none, okay, we're moving on. So we're on to 7, presentations. There's no presentations tonight. We are now on to 8. We have a deputation. We have the Small Ownership Landowners Ontario, SOL. We have our presenters, Kevin Constant, Chair, and then we are Kevin Constant, Chair, and Rosemary, Vice Chair. So welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. Just hit the big purple button on the mic and it should power up and you'll be, no, we have to hit the, hang on. Council, check your power buttons on the side of your mics, make sure they're on.
So that's on, that's working. Hopefully you can hear me. Great.
Sounds a little low.
A little closer to me. Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Costain. Of course, we represent Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario. We're about 8,000 strong, and we represent small landlords. Rose is here with me, the Vice Chair of our organization. We want to thank the town of Bradford, Ward 4 Councillor Joseph Giordano. Apologize for getting the name wrong. Thanks for inviting us, the entire City Council, for recognizing some of the struggles of small-scale housing providers. You know, with your motion 2579, we saw that and we appreciate that. We appreciate the efforts to try to bring fairness to the housing market. I just want to take a moment to talk about the motion. We want to point out that providing rentals is what landlords do. We want great tenants, and great tenants want safe and well-maintained homes. Justice for tenants does not take a backseat to justice for landlords. A healthy rental market for everyone provides the right housing for the right price and the right quantity. Everyone deserves access to justice when disputes arise. By making it easier to build additional dwelling units or basement suites, we can add more of the right kinds of rental stock people are looking for. For the most part, only small mom-and-pop rental operators are having their lives ruined by professional tenants. Large companies can kind of weather the storm, you know. One of them destroyed my only home, in fact. My professional tenant fraudulently applied for his rental, assaulted and terrorized me for more than a year, and ultimately destroyed my only home by setting it on fire. This 16-month eviction fight with the landlord and tenant board ended with possession of my home in an absurd 8 months after the fire destroyed it. 8 months. When I needed basic and timely justice, there was none. The insurance rebuilt my home. I was out of pocket even $40,000 on top of that. Oh, and I wrote a book about it. Anybody want to? By all means. I appreciate it if you want to check it out. So we could go to the next slide. One of the things, well, that's a slide I should have brought up immediately. You see the fire damage, and I was actually on CBC The National. They did a report on that, so it got some widespread attention, which was really nice. We can go to the next slide. Now, if we talk about non-payment, my tenant didn't pay to the tune of $26,000. L1s at the LTB are roughly about 51% on average. They kind of go up to 60% sometimes, but they represent the vast majority of LTB cases and files. We always try to point out that reducing these applications would quickly make the LTB much more efficient. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Now, I asked my friends at Open Room. We're really close with Open Room, openroom.ca. They're a clearinghouse of LTB orders. They did a search for the postal codes in Bradford, and what they found was almost $1 million in unpaid rent. That's just what's been uploaded by landlords, okay, in the last 4 years. So this amounts to $1 million that can't be taxed. It can't be, this is theft for the most part, theft of rental properties. So of course we recognize that this is a local problem. Even for Bradford, it's a serious and local problem. Now we go to the next slide. So for Solo, what we've done is we've asked the Attorney General, the Ministry of the Attorney General. We met with Brian Saunderson over there, and we met with others at the province to try to recommend some changes. Ask them for reforms. Some of the changes we really want to try to get across is just that, we could expedite non-payment eviction cases. We might call them written hearings, administrative hearings, to resolve these extreme backlogs. Try to resolve these, non-payment cases quickly. So we've requested that. We'd asked for them to classify small landlords, small mom and pop landlords, differently from the large landlords. And so you put them on a different track, different adjudicators. Those folks can get the help they need. Some of them are even immigrants. They don't handle the applications very easily. So we've asked for that as a representation. Allow minor amendments to notices and applications. The provincial government has actually put forward a bill, and I think the bill actually even passed. But we're not even sure that the LTB is going to implement those changes. And we would ask the LTB just simply to, allow minor changes. I had one of my non-payment of rent applications thrown out because I transposed just 2 numbers from 571 to 517, and they threw it out. And I had to go all the way back to the beginning. So just that, there are a number of other suggestions we can expand on. And if implemented, it would make the process of resolving disputes more efficient. And this is a win for tenants too, where, even in an ombudsman's investigation, he found one tenant application had been stalled at the LTB for 6 years. Imagine waiting 6 years for anything, for a hearing. None of this should be tolerated in a reasonably healthy rental market. None of it. So just in closing, I want to thank everyone for having me here to speak. And as Kathy Laird, a member of Tribunal Watch Ontario, says in the book Against the People, small landlords have historically contributed a disproportionate number of affordable units in the rental market. It needs to be said that small landlords are going to be a part of the solution to this big problem, and we want to help. We want to be there and be part of this. So just I'll leave it at that. I thank you guys for your attention, yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, happy to answer.
So thank you very much for that presentation. We appreciate that, and that was a staggering number you brought up, 771. That's a very large number for a small community like ours. So that's impacted a lot of residents, and I think it was Councillor Giordano brought it forward from a resident in his ward that was abused by a tenant, which was tough for us to deal with. So we thank him for bringing that forward. So I've got Councillor Virginie for a quick question, and Councillor Giordano right after.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight and for your presentation and for what you're doing as a group. One of the biggest issues is because of the way that the rules are set out right now, and because of how backlogged the LTB was for such a long time, the landlords are having such a problem, and we're in a situation where the Premier is saying that we need some other housing options. People who have these, we're even talking about ADUs within a property, to be able to have 3 units within one property so that you can offer different housing options. The issue is because of situations like this and how much they're occurring now, Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to do it anymore. To be a landlord today is not an easy thing to do. It's a scary thing to do. I'm in real estate, so I see it from people. They don't even want to look at rental properties anymore. They're just not interested. There's people who try to offload rental properties, and I've had to deal with tenants like this within my career. And currently, I'm actually in the situation. So we have a rental property that we had sold, and we had it listed since last August, and we had sold it, and it was supposed to close last month. Tenant decided that they didn't want to move out. So now the people who were supposed to take over this property can't, because it was for vacant possession and they need it for their family. I went through the whole process, did everything I was supposed to do, followed all the rules that I was supposed to do, and I'm always on hold. Luckily, I had requested for a shortened time frame through the LTB, and I actually have a hearing next week. So I'm hoping that this all comes together pretty quickly, because right now, the amount of undue stress and financial strain that it's putting on my family, we can't afford to do this. We did it as just something that at the time would have been a great idea to help potentially do something for our kids, and at the end of the day, we decided, okay, well, now's the time to sell. And then we find ourselves stuck in this situation. So I can't imagine people that have to live it out for 6 years or anything, even another year. I wouldn't be able to do it. So it's frustrating, and I want to just say that I appreciate what you guys are doing, because something needs to change.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Councilor Giordano.
So yeah, again,
Call Solo, by the way. We'll get you your number.
yeah.
Well,
So when you first reached out to me, I didn't know. I mentioned to you earlier. I thought it was a loan, and then we had the council that stepped up, and we put this motion forward, and I was shocked at the amount of people that were reaching out to me from across Ontario. I was getting people from all over Toronto, this and that, and then when we started speaking, I'm like, oh my God, there's a whole organization that's helping this. You know, it's not a fight that I personally had to deal with. My neighbors and my friends and people all through Bradford have been reaching out, and it's one of those things where I'm going to use my platform here to try to do something for the people. And the more I hear about this situation, the more I think of my grandparents. They've been renting their basement to supplement their income since they retired, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago. Like, God bless them, they've been lucky. But at the same time, if something like that were to happen to them, and we had a lady that actually came up, not for my word, but I invited her to come here, and she shared her story, and she was in the paper and everything else. And you know, she's living through absolute turmoil. You know, she's a retired, you know, woman with, and she needs the revenue, and her life is turned upside down. Why? Because people know that they can get away with it, and they're getting away with it significantly, time and time again. Like you said, professional renters and professional renovators. And it's not, there's so many good people that want to offer up inventory, and they're just saying, forget it. And that's a problem. I don't want to just have subdivision after subdivision, density after density, for the sake of trying to fix a problem that could easily be addressed as well with our housing numbers, if people actually felt confident knowing that if they put something on the market for a rental property, they're not going to lose their home, they're not going to have their home damaged, and they're not going to be out the money out of their own pocket. So I've committed to you guys to continue pushing on all channels. I know that the province has been made aware of this. I know that our MPP office says yes, they've received and they understand the motion, and there's work happening. But I'll keep pushing, and I'm going to ask all my colleagues and to everybody in this room here and listening online to please do your part as well. Write to your council members, write to your MPP, and ask them for this change. It needs to happen. It's not fair for people to lose, and a lot of times these homes are their only security that they have, financial security, and you take that away from them. It's just not right. And so thank you for what you're doing. I assume it's all, I think it was all volunteer based.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
and you know, you guys are doing amazing work, and I've been following you ever since, and it's fantastic. And well, let's keep connected. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Councilor Giordano. Councilor Dykey, and then I've got Councilor Harper next.
I'm glad to see that there's there's an association or a group that is working on this, because I too fell into a trap as a landlord, and decided that you couldn't keep on putting more water in the sinking boat, because at the end of the day it's very difficult dealing with tenants and the rights. I look to our south, look to our neighbors in Florida and in the States. It seems like they have a different a different system, and if you don't pay your rent in Florida, you're put in a book or in a log, and then it's harder for you to rent in the future if you cause a landlord a problem. So I would hope that the province or the feds would step up and try and overall improve our system, because there is a lot of good people that would like to buy more homes and rent and change their or balance their portfolio when it comes to investing. But the bottom line is, it's not easy. But I'm glad to see there's a group of you guys that continue to work on this, because we need this. It's very important. There's good and bad, but you have to do a balance. I could write a book like yours as well, because it's.
We need more books like this.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because it wasn't. I could write a book twice as much as that, but the bottom line is not easy, and
I'm sorry to hear that, though.
Yeah. I hope you guys can continue and have the drive to help all the landlords out there and the residents, because it is a balance. But thank you for coming and speaking tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Beggy. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for coming to present your business and organization here. 2 years ago, at council, a resident reached out to me and was having problems. They were pretty much close to yours, where they didn't set fire to it, but they actually put the pipes on and let the water run, caused water damage to the basement.
Yes.
They changed the locks, and they were unable to access it. Police couldn't even enter, nothing. The mayor and I both tried to reach out and try to do it, and fortunately our hands were tied to LTB, and that's all the resources that we had. Knowing now that there's a reach out that we can actually help out and maybe help other residents that have this. Fortunately, we were able to help this lady out. A resident has, the owner, and being a landowner here in Bradford myself, she's able to actually get the situation solved, but it took 8 months later. And it was multiple calls, multiple times. I went to the house, I did everything possible we could. Still, our hands were tied, her hands were tied, and she didn't want to do anything illegal, but the frustration. And I mean, this is just an elderly woman who owns a house and, was just trying to help make means. She had, a daughter that had disabilities and stuff. So literally, I was perplexed at what could I do to help the situation out. And, time and time again, I guess persistency paid off, and they finally moved out or got out of there. And finally, she got some relief. But that's just a lucky story. I know there's so many more that haven't had any. You've been through a lot of hardships as well. I mean, I have a place where I could rent a unit as well, but everyone questions or queries, do you really want to do that?
I guarantee you won't do that if you read this.
No, I'm like him and ha, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to balance the scales and put it back in place. That neutrality for both sides, to actually be respectful to each other instead of abusing the process that it has been so forwardly towards more tenants than the actual owners of the houses. Needs to actually be put back in place. So thank you very much for coming today, and I'll be reaching out as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Sandu, and then we'll close it off. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to both of you for making the presentation. It is a sad truth that this is happening, and it's also a sad truth that the opposite happens at sometimes, where you have bad landlords where tenants are stuck. Either way, the situation is not good, and more needs to be done at the LTV level, and those files need to move faster. You're right. What I did not hear was how solo, if someone wants to reach out, if they're in a similar situation that you were, now you're the guidance or help for people like yourself that was in such situation. How is it that you help them? And if you are, is there any finances involved that they have to pay to get this help, or how does it work?
Okay, so we do what we do for free. We don't charge any money to anybody that comes to us, and that's absolutely free. And what we do to help is anything we can. That's really the answer. So we'll counsel them. We'll listen to them. They call and they're crying, They're in utter ruination. They're losing their homes. Everything you can imagine is happening in the worst of the ways. And just like you guys, our hands are tied. But the little different is that many of us have gone through it. I've gone through it. So I know what would have helped me more while I was going through that. And honestly, we can really do nothing to change the balance of how things are today. So often we're just listening to them crying, or we're going to help, or helping them protect themselves, or helping find a balance. But we have no control over the balance of intervention. And this is the thing that has to change now, right away. When there are bad actors, whether landlord or tenant, there has to be a balance of intervention and a speed of intervention to solve the problem. Not 6 months later, 3 months later, or 8 months later, or even 6 years later. We have to find that balance, and we have to act on it right away if we're going to want to try to have a healthy housing market. So we do it anyway. The answer is we do everything we can. Everything we can. We counsel them, we educate them, we spend time, we go to the properties, we try to, we can't offer legal advice, but we try to offer our experiences, and really just every resource we can give to them, we do that.
Thank you. Actually, that's priceless that you're listening to them, because someone is there to listen and guide them, because sometimes what you might tell them based on your experience would help them, which is a good thing. And I think you guys are doing a very good thing,
We
and
try our
thank you
best,
for doing
what
that.
I mean? That's all it's, Rose has, Rose,
Actually, I'd like to add just
Yeah.
a little bit to that. So we have teams that are available to assist if someone calls. We have a live line that someone can call. You can come through solo.ca. We've got lots of educational tools, tips to do. Another thing that we do is we will coach them to, assess their situation, and we'll say, okay, you're at this spot now. We recommend that you get a paralegal, or, whatever there else, there's just lots of things. It's case by case basis, because everybody's situation is different. Every day, we've been doing this for 5 years. Every day we learn something new. We can't believe it. We say, oh my goodness, another new, different situation with a twist has come. But I'm very excited to say that along the LTB process, we've also discovered that we can file Provincial Offences Act charges. We have had non-paying tenants, repeat squatters, offending squatters. We've been able to go to court. Some of them have been arrested. We have a lot of different tools available to us that we can help the landlord. But you know how many times people have phoned, speak to us on the telephone, and they'll say to us, I thought I was alone. I can't believe, I'm so traumatized. We've had men cry on the phone with us because they're losing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. They're responsible now for paying for the person who's living in their property, not paying, plus they have to run their own household. So it's a lot of emotions, but we've got teams that are helping with people who are going through bankruptcy right now. Actually, it's kind of exciting in some cases, what the opportunities that we're able to help. Oh, am I too gleeful? Sorry. Sorry, but you were saying, how do we help? Yeah, we've got the hotline. We talk to people, help them to be untraumatized, just walk with them through the fire. Sometimes it's been a 2-year fire, but we're able to do a lot. So please contact us at solo.ca. That's our website. And anybody who, needs assistance, or if you know people.
So the information is on there, how to get a hold of you through solo.ca?
Yes.
Perfect. We'll definitely, we're going to promote that. We'll put that out there through our socials. We'll actually provide that information to our residents just in case somebody needs some.
So, yes, the phone number's on the website. So
Perfect. That's
Thank you, Rose.
exactly what we want to see. So I want to thank you both for this very informative information. We appreciate you very much coming here, and thank you to council for supporting this resolution. We will continue to fight for the fair rights of both the tenant and landlord. And there is horror stories out there. We've had a lady here already that showed us the cost of this. So that was what prompted council to make that resolution. So through Councillor Giordano's support. So
thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
All right. Council, we're on to number 9, open forum. So I have some members here at open forum. We'll call up first Larry Halbert. He is talking in regards to the gravel road conversion update. So Larry, if you'd like to come up first. Just state your name and your address, please, when you come up. Yeah, right there. Just press the big purple button when you get up there and
Thank you, everyone, for taking time to listen to the concerns of the residents on the 10th line regarding our getting our road paved and our farm soils hopefully saved at this point from poisoning from calcium and salt. Just give me a minute to get organized here. First of all, I have some pictures, and these will show that what is taking place at a culvert that's at the driveway of 4057 10th line. And I'm going to maybe ask Peter Dykey to pass these pictures along one at a time.
great. The clerk will grab them from you, and we'll give these to council for sure.
And I'd like to see them viewed at this time. And as they're being passed along, picture one shows flooding at the edge of our cornfield, and it extends into approximately 2 to 3 acre parcel of land. And this excessive flooding comes from the crossing of the culvert at our driveway at 4057, and which the problem with this culvert is that it's undersized, it's under width, it's a 30-foot by 36-inch culvert, which only handles a certain amount of water coming from the collection of ditches from Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and surrounding land that contributes. And most of the time, the water is handled properly, but when we have heavy rainfall or runoff from spring melt, you can see in the picture that we're showing here that it does damage. And this crop along the edge, along approximately 2 acres of corn, was lost due to flooding at this time of production in the cropping cycle. And picture number 2 is a picture that shows what the flooding looks like as the water can't get through the culvert and floods across the road. And this happens when we have heavy rainfall, the 1.5 inches, the heavy rainfall, the 2+ inch rainfall, and the catchment area that surrounds this, and the ditches where the township collects water under the Tile Drainage Act. That's the responsibility of the township to supply the means of a culvert adequately sized to get the water from the north side ditch to the south side of the ditch, where if that's done properly, there's a proper ditch that will handle all the water that it can do. But this is undersized and can't handle the heavy flows. When it can't handle the heavy flows, you can see the water flowing across the road in this picture. And what it does is it comes in our driveway and then proceeds out into the agricultural land and forms a small lake in the cornfield. Picture number 3 is another example of these pictures were all taken at different times. This isn't the same flood and only a once in a lifetime occurring thing. These occurred at varying times. And picture number 3 is another picture of another flood taking place and water flowing across the road. Picture number 4 is what happens on other rainfall amounts where the shoulders of the road, it's so narrow through here. This is a blind point or a blind spot in the road. It can't, westbound traffic coming towards this cannot see this, the traffic, whether it's a combine or a tractor trailer or just residential traffic traveling through this area, or walkers or hikers or cyclists or anyone else. And when eastbound traffic coming from the west comes through this blind spot, it's a
30
problem.
seconds, Larry. We have 30 seconds left.
Oh my gosh. Quickly, we'll go through all the pictures. It's just more pictures of the same, the damage, but I'd lastly like to speak about the salt and the calcium that's impregnated in the road surface, and it gets translocated through snowfall. The wind blows it. The snow plows move it. This is a picture of snow that was pushed onto Class 1 agricultural land during the winter time, and the same with this picture. So I'll just sum it up in saying that in other municipalities, when the soil and the chemistry of the soil is irreparably damaged, there are lawsuits, and that's coming in our condition, because we're seeing this in our cropland. The yield monitors are on our combines are telling us that as we get to the roadsides, we're losing production, and it translocates into lost money and et cetera, down the road. Time up.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. Sorry about that.
I could go on.
I know you could go on.
Okay.
Thank you
very much.
We will be dealing with that report later tonight. It's on our agenda at 12.3, and it's the under staff report, so we'll definitely be dealing with that. We thank you for the information. The pictures were eye-catching. So
could I just say one thank you to the community that we live on the 10th line, and a special thanks to Peggy and Ted Brown, who a few years ago organized the cleaning of the ditches to pick up the Tim Hortons cups and the McDonald's and that. We think we have we're not the only ones, but we're among the cleanest kept ditches in Bradford, West Gwillimbury. I'd like to say thanks to Peggy and community members that she organized and Ted organized when he was with us. And we'd like to say special thanks to them. Thanks very much.
okay, we thank you too. Thank the residents of that area too for cleaning up. We appreciate that very, very much. Okay, I've got next up Nancy Halpert. And if we can respect the time, 5 minutes for everybody, because I've got a few speakers tonight. So.
I have it down.
Perfect. Thank you.
As long as I don't screw up, right? Okay, so we're on. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councillors. I am Nancy Halbert, and I'm here to speak about the Gravel Roads Conversion Report. As you know from my previous presentation, we have been lobbying to have our 2.9 kilometer section of Line 10 paved for decades. All of the other portions of Line 10 have been paved. In July of 2015, Councillor Ferragini messaged me that the Director of Engineering went out himself to take photos of Line 10. He agrees some areas are extremely bad and called the meeting with the Public Works to devise a mitigation plan. A mitigation plan. 10 years and there still isn't a plan. This is where the problem lies. For the last 40 years, there has been no plan for our road. The 2024 Roads Needs Study gives suggestions, but it says it's up to council to decide when, what, and how the gravel roads are converted to pavement. Mayor Leduc said in the November 15th meeting that he hoped one day all gravel roads would be paved, and he felt that the town would have maintenance savings and recovering costs. Mayor Leduc was correct. Paving roads does save money long term. However, this report being presented to you tonight does not give you accurate information. Tonight's report is based on the 2024 Roads Needs Study report, which has a 60-year cost comparison between a gravel road and a paved road. Like, why 60 years? If you break down this comparison into an annual amount, the total cost of a paved road over a gravel road is $6,072. However, I want to point out that this figure is based on the road being graded only 4 times a year at a cost of $3,448. Our neighbor has kept data on the number of gradings on our roads since 2022 forward, and here are the actual numbers. In 2022, 14 gradings were taking place. That's 10 over the 4 that's projected in the report. In 2023, it was 17. In 2024, it was 22. If you do the math and calculate the actual number of gradings that took place over the 4 quoted used in the report, you will note the additional cost for grading our road from 2022 to 2024 was totaling $141,368. Director DeRouche was told at our Line 10 meeting in November that the report did not have the accurate number of gradings, yet he submitted this incorrect figures to you in this report. I don't understand why Director DeRouche chose to misrepresent actual costs of gradings of Line 10, but it's a costly error and only one road in the town. So multiply it by your other roads. I continually question Director DeRouche's information. For example, Director DeRouche has quoted the amount to pave our road as $2.4 million. In December, I asked him to specify what exactly needs to be done and break down the cost, to review what could be cut from those costs to save money, to bring down the cost. Yesterday, I asked for this information once again to no avail. All we get is a general reply. He says the road needs ditch work. Yes, the best parts of our road has no ditches. If it works, don't touch it. He says our road needs to be a width of 8 meters, yet every other road is 7 meters. He says the road does not have an adequate base, yet the road has risen inches over the years from gravel being applied, and gravel has been applied for decades. On and on. Dear council members, I asked you, why can't we get our road paved? Why do we have to live with the dust, the potholes, the car repairs, and the dirty cars? Why can't we have equity with everyone else in the township that has paved roads? As some of you know, I was a local trustee school board. Anyways, a trustee role similar to those of you on council. In my experience, if you want something done, you pass a motion and tell staff what to do. Council directs staff. I was disappointed to hear Director DeRouche respond to the mayor saying that all gravel roads will remain gravel. This is not Director DeRouche's decision. It's yours, council's. Therefore, I ask council to pass a motion to direct staff to incorporate the paving of our road into the 2026 budget if it cannot be accommodated in 2025. It can be done, guys. You just have to direct it. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time's
Perfect timing.
lapsed.
No, that was perfect timing. It just lapsed. I knew you were on your closing statement. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker. It is John Murphy, Brownlee. Okay. I will then move on to next speaker is Candace Smith, 37 Gulfview Drive.
Says talk. Yep, I was a teacher. Mayor Leduc and council members, thank you for your time tonight. I'm back again in front of you regarding the Bayview Wellington application, and specifically tonight's motion to vote on whether to include the property in the urban boundary. Thank you again for listening to our concerns regarding the Bayview Wellington development of the former Highlands property as you vote tonight on whether to include the property in the town's urban boundary. I've spoken at every public meeting regarding this application. I've been respectful and logical. I've reviewed all Bayview Wellington's application documents and report, which has taken days and days. I met in person with the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority hydrogeologist and planner to discuss their evaluation of Bayview Wellington's development plan in regards to the protection of the Lake Simcoe watershed, wetlands, groundwater, and vulnerable aquifers. I discovered that the WSP hydrogeological report, a significant element of the application, was flawed, as it assumed there were no private wells in the vicinity of the Highlands property. In fact, my well and the wells of my adjacent neighbors are in our backyards and are about 40 meters from the Highlands property. Bayview Wellington only acknowledged that there are in fact many homes with private wells adjacent to the development area after I exposed the flaw in the WSP report. Over all this time, with all this public feedback, Bayview Wellington has still not satisfactorily addressed the impact their development will have on the groundwater, aquifers, and private wells in the area. They have not undertaken a private well survey. They have not provided a clear action plan for monitoring and protecting existing wells. They've not explained how they will provide for residents when the development construction contaminates the wells or drains the aquifers that feed them. They've revised their application only to include vague references to some type of plan in the future, and I quote, "The potential effects of development on private wells in the vicinity will be addressed as part of the ongoing hydrogeological evaluation and will include development of a monitoring and mitigation plan." Development of a plan. I hope that Council finds this unsatisfactory. Council may feel obliged by the province and by the county to add this property to the urban boundary at this time to allow Bradford, Bayview Wellington to move forward to build more houses. Even so, respectfully, Council's priority is the well-being of the residents of Bradford. We're counting on you to protect the aquifers and wells that supply our clean drinking water. Please vote no tonight and instruct Bayview Wellington to submit a truly revised application that contains an updated and accurate hydrogeological report. Have them provide a clear step-by-step plan to monitor and protect our private wells and aquifers. Have them put in writing what they will do for homeowners when the aquifers and wells are contaminated and/or drained. Please vote no to the inclusion of the Highlands property in the urban boundary tonight. The Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority evaluation is not complete, and Bayview Wellington has by no means addressed the disturbing issue of the risks to our aquifers, wells, and clean drinking water. If you vote yes tonight, who will compel Bayview Wellington to help us later when our well water is contaminated or drained? All we have now are vague promises. Sorry, Don.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments. Okay. Next up, I have Amanda Ferragini.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. My name is Amanda Ferragini, and I'm here today to express my strong concern regarding the proposal inclusion of the former golf course lands into the urban boundary. Currently, these lands are zoned open space recreational, agricultural marsh, and natural heritage system 2, none of which permit urban development. And yet this proposal asks to redesignate them to low and medium density residential, despite the fact that our current official plan extends to 2031 and already identifies sufficient lands within the urban boundary to meet our growth targets. Why is this application being prioritized over the new official plan before it's even being completed? There are numerous parcels already within our urban boundary that remain underdeveloped. This applicant should follow the same process that everyone else does. Growth must be smart and not reactive. The staff report mentions that there is sufficient capacity in the water system for the proposed development by the end of 2027. This land isn't even inside the growth forecast for 2031. Why are we reserving future servicing for land not yet designated for development? The town's own development engineering team raised concerns about this, and approving this application sends a really troubling precedent. On contributions, a proposed $12 million from the developer may sound significant, but for a project of this magnitude, it's not. When you consider what we need in terms of infrastructure, emergency services, facilities, it falls short. This is not a community benefit. This is a bare minimum. Our leisure services master plan shows that we're short by 36 acres of parkland. This land presents a perfect opportunity to address that. Instead, the developer is offering protective land that's swampy land as park space, land that can't be developed anyways. So that's not even really parkland. Environmental concerns are obviously very critical. The site includes the Natural Heritage System zoning. The Lake Region Conservation Authority notes that the developer is requesting a 10-meter setback where 30 meters is required by the Lake Region Conservation Protection Plan, with no proof that it won't impact our environmental features. They also haven't completed a well survey, yet homes in the surrounding area rely on private wells, myself included. Water is a basic human right. How can we move forward with this application without knowing the impacts on the aquifer? The report projects $2.8 million in tax revenue, yet this year alone, our police budget increased by over $2 million, and we are already stretched thin. With potentially 3,000 to 4,000 new residents, how will this revenue truly help us sustain our services? Though tonight's recommendation is to bring the lands into the urban boundary, the staff report already ties this decision to the specific plan, with references to density, tax revenue, and LSRCA comments, all based on that plan. Yet that plan has not meaningfully changed despite considerable public opposition. One small block of homes was removed to make room for a school, but otherwise there was nothing. There's a 6-meter buffer between estate homes and dense development. This isn't transitional planning. Some homes on Brownlee, for example, will have up to 20 backyards bordering onto their property. That's just not good planning. It's just way over intensification. I understand the argument about housing crisis, but that doesn't mean we approve any plan anywhere, regardless of the context. People still want to live on larger lots with traditional homes, not just townhouses and semis. This plan fails to respect the character of the existing community and the investments that these people have made to their homes. Council was elected to represent its residents, to listen and to balance growth with livability. The plan does not reflect this balance. I urge you, do not approve adding these lands to the urban boundary at this time. Let's complete the new official plan. Let's demand proper studies and plans that respect our existing neighborhoods. And let's work together on a vision that benefits all of our residents, both our current ones and our future ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up I have Shikar Mossad. Okay, thank you. Next up then I have Lorraine Mental. Lorraine, you're passing? Okay. William Whitty. William Whitty. He's at the back. William, no? Okay. Thank you. And then I have Dr. Frank Vitae. Vitae, sorry. Viti, sorry.
What you have in front of you is a detailed report. I'm only going to give you a summary 5-minute version. And I'm here on behalf of the Line 10 residents speaking to you about the pavement of our road. Dear Mayor Leduc, fellow council members and senior leadership, for many years, over a decade actually, the residents on Line 10 have been advocating for the paving of our road, which remains one of only a few left in the town of Bradford. The current estimate for comprehensive road construction, including the paving, the culvert installations, the water management, etc., is around $2.4 million. We strongly encourage this council to approve the investment, as the continued neglect of Line 10 has resulted in some negative impacts on public health, vehicle integrity, road safety, all of which have been exacerbated by increasing severe winter conditions. This report in front of you is a scientific position. It quotes several papers that illustrate that road dust and disease go hand in hand. You have a reference section in the back of this report and some bullet points that gives you the science. And the science is showing that unpaved roads are a major source of hazardous airborne particulate matter, which are inhaled deep into the lungs and our bloodstream, causing exacerbating respiratory and cardiovascular disease. The science is in your package. Road dust contains toxic heavy metals, lead, chromium, arsenic, platinum group elements, carcinogenic compounds which are linked to the following: asthma, COPD, cancer, neurodevelopmental deficits in children, and premature death. Our streets has young family, seniors, not so senior, younger folks. We have a good representation, and these toxic heavy metals are being inhaled and getting into our system. The children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing conditions are at the greatest risk. Studies show that up to 16% of airborne particulates in rural communities from unpaved roads directly are correlating with higher rates of respiratory illness. There is a legal liability issue that you all have to face as a council, that this town has to face. Municipalities have a duty of care to mitigate known health risks. There is precedent for lawsuits in Canada and the US and regulatory action against towns that fail to comply to controlling of the road dust, especially when it leads to disease and premature death. It's a very serious issue, and I've given you the information in front of you. There's also the economic burden. We've talked about vehicle damage. You've heard some of our colleagues in line 10. Unpaved roads caused significant vehicle damage, increased wear, suspension failure, undercarriage corrosion, leading to higher repair costs. We have safety hazards. Accidents and emergency access are compromised. Unpaved roads are more dangerous. Reduced traction, loose gravel, and dust clouds increase the risk of skidding, rollovers, and collisions. And I've given you the evidence, a reference to the evidence if you want to see the details. There's issues around also climate change and winter inaccessibility. Climate change is destroying our roads. In the winter, with the freeze and thaw cycles, heavy precipitation and rapid snow melt make Line 10 impassable for extended periods of times, isolating residents and impeding emergency services when they're required. And unpaved roads erode quickly in these conditions, increasing maintenance costs and safety risks. So we are here today encouraging you to help us make the case and for you to move forward on the paving of this road. Paving is the most cost-effective way to eliminate the road dust and its associated health, safety, and economic impacts. The $2.4 million, which is what we've been told, we believe is an investment that is justified by the reduction of healthcare costs, vehicle repairs, accident rates, and the elimination or reduction of legal risk for this town. And I think I've done my best to stay on time.
You've done an excellent job. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you for this report. This will be, council will review this. We're coming up with that. All right. That's all I have for public speakers tonight. I thank you all. Hey? Oh, yes, I have a written submission. So, Madam Clerk, can you read out the written submission, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have a written submission from Mr. Bob Adam regarding the recommendation report PLN 2025-18, application for official plan amendment for the Highlands development. With reference to section 3.7, conclusion and recommended modifications to proposed official plan amendment. Paragraph 2A excludes any linear buffer areas from the calculation of parkland dedication requirements of any proposed development unless it meets a specific criteria. I agree with this restriction. However, this restriction could provide the developer with the incentive to minimize or completely delete any linear buffer areas from any proposed development. Given that the current adjacent boundaries of this area is comprised primarily of estate homes, I would make the proposal that there should be a significant minimum requirement for a reasonable linear buffer area as a formal established requirement in any official plan amendment for the subject lands. I am unsure if this is effectively covered elsewhere in the OP amendment. I believe all of the residents of the surrounding areas have a significant concern of a development being built right on top of them. They all purchased and paid substantial prices for properties with the expectation that this encroaching would never ever be the case. To be fair to existing long-term residents, their interests should take priority over those of a developer maximizing profit from land use density. Having a decent-sized linear buffer area embodied in the official plan seems like a reasonable ask, and I believe paragraph 2A should be modified to reflect that, either as a reference if it is already included elsewhere in the official plan amendment or as an additional condition. Many thanks for your time to consider this.
Okay, thank you for that. And we have no other written submissions, right? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. We are now moving on to section 10, adoption of minutes and committee of whole recommendations. So I have a recommendation, the committee of whole recommendation COW 2025-17 to COW 2025-20 be approved, and the minutes of the regular council and committee of whole meeting dated April 1st, 2025 be adopted as printed. Moving a second to put this on the floor. Councillor Ferragini, seconded by Councillor Dykey. Question, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. There is no correspondence tonight, so we're on to section 12. It's staff reports. We have our first one, 12.1, the street party road closure and noise bylaw exemption. We recognize that Councillor Harper has declared a conflict, but he's open to questions from the public. Councillor McKay.
Can we not just delegate authority to staff on this?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We've heard it in the past, and we will certainly be bringing that forward. This one does have some consequences, but it's interesting, but we will be delegating that. Trust me, it's coming. Okay, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Giordano. Question, concerns with this report? It's in regards to a street party on Chelsea on May 19, 2025 from 1 to 5. Good to see. No questions or concerns? All right, all in favor? Carried, thank you. That's carried. We are on to 12.2, request for pre-servicing agreement, FNB Developments. So recommendation of the report ENG 2025-2 entitled Request for Pre-Servicing Agreement, FNB Developments, Inc. be received and the necessary bylaw be presented to council to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a pre-servicing agreement. Mover seconder, put this on the floor, please. By Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Harper. Questions or concerns with this one? Pre-servicing agreement? No? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are now into 12.3, our gravel road conversion update. So we have recommendation that report AM 2025-1 titled Gravel Road Conversion Update be received for information. Just move in a second to put this on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Ferragini. Questions or concerns with this report? I will start with Councillor Verkuyk and then Councillor Ferragini next.
I really would want to thank staff for this report. It's a long time coming. We have some dollar figures, and I really think we need to look at this at budget time as a regular line item. Like this, we need to get moving forward on this. Like we just can't say, well, we have a little extra money this year, or a little extra money next year, but it needs to be part of a plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Ferragini next.
Thank you. I want to thank all the residents who came out to speak about their road today. I have heard it on your end. We've had conversations on this end. I've been advocating to have our gravel roads paved. It's not an easy fight. There is a substantial cost to it, as we're told by our staff all the time. However, you hear the comments, the valid concerns and comments. When it comes to growth related, the way our town has been growing so much, all of our rural roads are becoming much more used, and especially our throughways. When you take a look at line 10, when you're looking at side road 5 to highway 27, it is being used as a throughway. So residents are dealing with a lot more traffic, a lot more dust, a lot more issues, and it's causing a lot more potholes on the road. So I would like to make an amendment to this. I do agree with Councillor Verkuyk about taking this to the budget, and we have to constantly, now that we have the numbers, we can look at incorporating some sort of plan here. But it's already taken too long to get to this point. This is something we should have had a long time ago. But I feel that when you look at the priority of some of these roads, the throughways, to me, should be at the top of the list, and the priorities versus those that are dead ends. So in regards to this, I would like to make an amendment to the recommendation that the report AM 2025-1 titled Gravel Road Conversion Update be received for information, and that, you gotta help me with the wording here, and that line 10 paved is to be paved from Side Road 5 to Highway 27 to be included in the 2026 budget for council's consideration. I feel this is a fair way to have this amendment. I'm not calling for it to get done today. I will be fighting to have it done, but at the same time, council needs to actually consider the numbers, see the numbers, and make an educated decision on this.
Okay, thank you for that. I think I have Councillor Verkuyk seconding your amendment.
Yes, but I'd like to add to it.
Okay.
I would like to add line 4 Coffee Road stretch and Simcoe Road in the Marsh to that.
So, okay, so you're adding the amendment. So you said line 4, Coffee Road, all of line 4, complete, right? Line 4, Coffee, all of that road section. Because it's in 2 spots here, line,
Yes.
under line 4, and then
Yeah, from line 4, like 230 meters from
Coffee Road.
Side Road 10 to Coffee Road, and Coffee Road from line 4 to where it's paved, and also Simcoe Road from Canal Road to Tornado.
Okay, thank you. So that's seconded by are you okay with the extra amendment, Councillor Ferragini?
I'm okay with the addition, however, it'll all come down to the cost, where I fight for it.
Okay. Okay, next up I had Councillor Giordano, and then I'll come over this side.
So I have some experience driving on gravel roads. I had some property up north, and that was the only option to have a chalet. It was to have a gravel road. Not fun in the wintertime, but I personally don't like gravel roads. I don't like driving on them. I don't like what it does to my car. And on a hot summer's day, you got to keep the windows down. I mean, up, because you don't want all the dust coming in and everything else. I get that. I actually recently, when this report came through, I took a drive around Bradford, and I went to go look at some homes. I made a left-hand turn, and immediately I noticed it was a gravel road, and I was like, "Ooh, okay." And I drove on it, and I looked at the house, and I said, "Yeah, I'm not buying a house on a gravel road." That's a choice that I can make. Truthfully, we didn't rip the roads out. There was gravel roads when you purchased those homes and those properties. So it's not like we've done something that is a surprise. The gravel roads were there. But I understand if I lived on those gravel roads, I'd be in the exact same position as everybody here. I think that the staff mentioned, I'll let maybe another counselor speak to that, but there's not a lot of homes that actually live on gravel roads. But we have other roads in town that a lot of people and a lot of taxpayers live on that can't get their roads repaired. So there's a challenge that council has to deal with. It's not like we can just wave a magic wand and have it done. But here's the kicker. So I don't know how many years ago, maybe 10, 8, 9 years ago, previous council actually took 0.5% away from our capital levy, and all of these roads probably could have been paved by now. This is the cost when you try to save a few bucks a year and try to do some stuff without our long-term planning. This is what happens. So we're stuck now in a position, or what do? We have to just keep, we don't have a plan. We have to restart that capital levy in order to start looking at all these projects, or we got to take from somewhere else. So, at the end of the day, I will definitely support council looking at how we can address these roads, because I agree. I wouldn't want to live on there, and I wouldn't want to have to drive through there. But it's just frustrating that we're in this position right now.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Councillor Scott, then I have Councillor Harper, then Councillor Dykey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll probably pick up where Councillor Giordano left off, but thank you to the Halberts and Dr. Beatty and all the Line 10 residents who spoke. That was helpful information. I certainly want to get all gravel roads paved, and I appreciate the report laying out a sequencing that we could start to look at doing it year over year. And as Councillor Giordano was alluding to, we have a road needs assessment that's an annual feeder into our budget, and it's based on a prioritization that includes volume, condition of the road, age of the road, etc. And up until now, it hasn't really included gravel road conversion. That's been a sort of ad hoc extra. So I like having a plan, and I like what Councillor Ferragini's done with the amendment to refer 3 in particular to the budget, including one Simcoe Road that happens to be partially in my ward. The other thing that I always ask for, and again, this is what Councillor Giordano was alluding to, is low volume roads. Some of our worst condition urban roads like Wood Crescent in my ward, I know Councillor Harper would have a list as well, don't make the cut because they don't have enough traffic, yet they're the worst condition and they're the oldest roads in town. I think Wood Crescent was last repaved in 78. I could be wrong, but around then. And the road's not in good shape. And I hear about it every summer, and there's some residents in the room who are nodding along as I say this. So to Director DeRoche and Director Goodfellow, when it comes time to the budget, I really want to see a prioritization plan that deals with our existing asset management plan for roads, which we already are struggling to afford, plus the gravel roads that we want to get done for our residents, and some sort of sequence to get these low volume roads that aren't making the cut otherwise, but are actually in the worst condition. We have done a good job over the years of trying to repave our older roads summer by summer, piece by piece, but we're hearing where people are feeling they've fallen through the cracks, and we have to try and solve that. So in order to do that, we have to wrap our heads around the financials at the budget time, and it's going to take a 10-year plan essentially or more. But if we can start that process, and whether it's Line 10, Simcoe Road, or another gravel road, I think Line 10's clearly made their case today. I want to be able to start chipping away at this problem year over year in the 2026 budget, please.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harper?
You know, the benefit to actually hearing a lot of the, you know, people come up and in the open forum is to give us their opinions. And I appreciate some of the things that came up. And I'd like to ask the director to come up and answer some questions, if that's possible. Mayor? I'll just give him a minute to head over here. First question I asked them, though, was how many residents are in this area live on gravel roads, and the number I got was approximately 150 developed residential lands or residential properties reside on gravel roads out of a town of 46,000 people approximately. Line 10, I struggled to see this in regard to the report and the numbers that were actually given on this data. Simcoe County Road 27 and Canal Road or Tornado Drive seem to be one of our higher priorities as opposed to the amendment that was just put on the floor. One of the residents talked about the gradings in your 60-year plan, Director, and first of all, justify to us just why we chose 60 years and not just recently, and do those numbers in regards to the gradings where X number of gradings were proposed, did we go over budget on those due to, I guess, the road erosion and stuff?
Through your worship to Councillor Harper. So with the road gradings, due to weather patterns we've been experiencing lately, we had to increase the grading consistency within that roadway. After speaking with the Line 10 residents, we are trying to approach this in a different way to cut down on the grading, but still maintain the service levels. Sorry, what was the second part? The 60 years. So that is a standard. When you're looking at a road when it's constructed, they always budget for a 60-year life cycle on that. So within that 60 years, there's road rehabilitations, or whether it's gravel, then you're talking your grading, your and your calcium application.
Okay, thank you. So then, based on the weather inclemented that we've been experiencing over the last several years, is it possible that we could continue to have an increase in gradings over the next few years on some of these gravel roads? And will that be forecasted in the budget, or has that already been forecasted before?
So that falls within our operational maintenance budget line. So there's a little more flexibility within that one. One thing we have had lately is a shortfall again with the budget. So there hasn't been as much gravel applied year after year. Where typically it could have been 100 mils, we've been sometimes able to afford 50 to 75. So if we could increase the gravel application in certain areas, that would help as well. But it all comes down to budget.
There was pictures that were presented to us by one resident in regards to the ditching and the overwater. This seems to be just this one area, and it's been fixed several times. With the plan that being put in place, or what you've been saying, if we do have to go into paving, these ditchings will probably have to be fixed or added to the cost of this area. But if we choose to, like, if this road or this portion area that was in one of the pictures with the flooding, could that not be solved with the gravel roads already in place, or what would need to be able to fix that?
Through your worship to Councillor Harper. So in that area right now, we are working with trying to retain a consultant because they're going to help with a preliminary design on how we can address this one area. It's not just the drainage within the area, there is also a hill crest that we're looking at trying to lower and widen this section of the road as well. Once we get a preliminary design, then we'll know how much it's going to cost. We are planning on trying to do the work within our own operations division to keep the cost within a relative budget. But once we get this information, then we can move forward, hopefully with the plan in this one segment. Now, again, if we start converting these roads to hardtop, you also lose that impervious area of the gravel, so there is more runoff into the ditches. If we do pave this road, it doesn't meet the width criteria. We're looking at, we need 7 meters of asphalt and then 1 meter per side for the shoulder. So this whole section would need to be widened by approximately 2 meters.
Thank you for the question. Answer my questions. I'm going to relate back to this amendment here in regards to the data. I would be okay with actually coming up with a strategy first and knowing what that looks like instead of actually just popping in several different roads here. Several different roads that my colleagues have mentioned don't even meet the priorities that they're talking about in regards to this data that has been provided to us. So it's a little bit hard to actually make the decision in regards to actually what is needed. I'd like it to go back and then you give us that priority list and then with a plan, and then we start implementing that throughout the year over year. I think that's a smarter and fiscal approach to this, considering it's been a number of years. The resident mentioned there was no plan, so maybe we put the plan in place and to have that start first. The other part of this is that you mentioned the 60-year cycle, and my colleague talked about roads in Ward 2 and Ward 6, and he mentioned something in 1973, but I beat him. I have a road that's in 1960s that hasn't been redone. That's over 60 years, I think. It's coming up to that. So I'd hope that we have a plan for those roads, because I have 18 of those roads that haven't been touched for over like 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So, and yeah, they're all over the town. But it's curious to know that those probably roads in regards to the, I guess, the standards in here, the Ontario MOL, or the Ministry of Labor Ontario road segment, puts the threshold at 300 for average ADT, basically, in regards to traffic. And it's been reduced to 200 to give some more leeway or to increase the numbers, because Bradford is its own unique area, and we've built a whole traffic mitigation strategy for that, and that helps in that situation, and it gives us clearer numbers. But I probably can guarantee that some of the roads that we have in our urban areas outpace in regards to some of the traffic that's been here. And we do have to find that balance, which is why I'd say I'd rather see a plan in place. And if the amendment still sticks, then I will have to basically decline it.
Thank you for that. I got Councillor Dykey next.
with amendments, this came forward, I definitely agree with amendments. Simcoe Road's been kicked around for many, many years. The 10th line too. It's been before many councils before, and I hope that in the future and continue that we come up with a business model to continue to pave what we can afford to pave, because in a perfect world, you know, money, nobody wants to see major taxations of homes, but you have to have a balance. But hopefully in the future councils will continue to roll out a special funding to start paving these roads. But at this point, I'm in favor for the amendment in place that was presented tonight.
Thank you. I have Deputy Mayor Sandu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank you for the report. It's very well written and very good report with lots of data. I think Ms. Halbert was right. It's staff's job to provide us with data, cost. It's up to these members on this side of the table to say these roads need to be done. Staff can't tell us and that road needs to be done or not. We decide based on the numbers we have. The comment was made about capital levy and why these roads weren't done. I think I was one of the councillors that voted for reduction of that capital levy at that time. It was because during COVID, there was people, lots of residents reaching out to this council saying either help us with a tax break or we're not getting food, we're not getting stuff for our homes. And I think it was the decision made by council at that time, and I was part of that council, so I owned that decision, and I think it was based on the facts at that time. We made the right decision. Now that doesn't mean we neglect the rest of the stuff. I also don't agree with a comment that people choose to live on gravel roads, so we forget about them. We shouldn't. I seen some of these roads with huge potholes that you actually can damage. Never mind your tire, you can damage your rim and your vehicle when you drive on those.
Point of order. I did not say that we should forget about them. So please clarify that.
So,
okay. Thank you. Your point is noted. You did say that people choose to live on gravel roads, so it can be implied either way. But your point is your point, my point is my point. So what I'm saying is we need to look at these roads. And budget time is when we look at it. When we come budget times, we have a different tone. Because at that time, we're looking at how much tax increase people can live with. And we're listening to the residents at that time. When that time comes, we also need the residents to understand you've been asking us for stuff like this. So it's gonna cost money. I am in favor of doing line 10. I seen it. I don't know why line 4 and that Coffee Road section was left I used to sit on council table and where it would frustrate Councillor Orr because people would just make jokes that it just ended at the councillor's driveway and he had nothing to do with it. You know, that kind of stuff frustrates the residents. It frustrates us. When we start something, it needs to carry on and finish it. And same thing goes for line 10. And there's other roads that needs to be done, and we need to tackle it, whether it's with a recommendation now or at budget time, because we can't tell staff tonight, go ahead and work on that line 10, 11, or 12, whichever it is. It has to be at budget time. So I think we need to do our homework on this side of the table, and at that time provide a clear direction to staff so they can do their job that residents expect from us. Thank you.
thank you for that. And I will go back to everybody. I'm just going to comment on this report myself. I just want to start out by saying, you know, council initiated a special capital levy back for this. We started in 2013. It was about building the infrastructure, maintaining it. It's an asset. We want to do the best we can. I know by 2022 we had dropped $21 million in road rebuilding in our community. We had a roads needs study that we went back and we broke the community up to 4 quadrants. we're moving through those quadrants to get all of those roads redone, including in everybody's ward. So this is a very tough one. Roads, everybody wants their road redone. And we're here to do that. That's our job, to make sure that we bring the roads up to standards that are livable and worth people being able to travel on them at a safe, being safe and everything else. So I can tell you in 2020, I think it was one, we did pave a gravel road. We used the surplus of that year, and we paved 10th line from 10th Side Road to the 400. My suggestion to council, again, you're going to bring this to budget, but it is, like the Deputy Mayor said, it's a very difficult time at budget. I would like to see us look at the 2024 surplus and take that money and use that for gravel roads, because we already have a roads need study and we're dealing with our urban roads, and I don't want to play with that budget. I think we're online to continually do our urban roads, which need to be done. But this is money that is not allocated to anything until council decides to allocate it. So when I look through this report, I wanted to suggest that we looked at roads, and just let me pick one out if you don't mind to explain my point. Wanda Street goes from Canal Road to DeWald. It's $140,000 to do it from this report, based on the fact that we don't have to do anything other than just put pavement down. The cost, the life cycle costs, are actually only $20,000 or $50,000 difference. No, yeah, $50,000 difference, sorry, over the life cycle of 60 years. That's minimal over a 60-year period. That's nothing. That's really nothing. That's something we can afford to do. When I looked at other roads, I looked at the Coffee Road. It's $234,000 to do. So my suggestion, and I talk about when I looked at the life cycle costs, there's where I thought we could make the best headway, because in the end, we're not impacting the residents 100%. We're making sure the life cycle costs are very close to being right there. We know that paving gravel will save us money, and we've seen that from the actual grading. We talk about 4 gradings a year. Based on weather, we don't know if we're going to do 6, 10, or 12. So those are costs that are unknown to us, but we can incur them through the life cycle issues. So I wanted to put some roads on the table today to say, and give our staff a chance to go back, review these, come back with us with, by the time we get to the surplus that's going to come to us, a report in June, staff would have the actual costs to say, yes, we can do that road for $140,000, or no, we can't. So I talked about, and I would suggest, I think line 10 should be on there. Line 10 should be on there. Coffee Road should be on there. I think that's a road that is well worth doing. And I looked at the Simcoe Road, and I see that our cost to do that is only $25,000 over the life cycle of 60 years. I say that's a benefit. So those 3 roads, I would like staff to go out, review those numbers that we have in front of us. When the report comes back with the surplus funding from 2024, we can actually say, yes, we're doing it, and this is why we're doing it. If a cost comes back extremely high, we're then going to be able to say, okay, we now have a financial analysis of what we're going to do, and we can then talk about that at budget or build it into our roads needs study like everybody's been saying. I did say way back, I said I want to pave all our roads because I think there is an actual savings over time. We buy graders to pave these roads. Those graders are expensive. If we don't need a grader to grade roads because we paved them all, that's a savings. So there is, there's a fine balancing here, and I want to make sure that we do this correctly. But in the past, we've used that money that we had, the surplus, and reallocated to something to benefit the residents. Gravel roads are never going to be enough residents to live there, to tell you the truth. It's not. They're big, wide properties. They're farm, but they deserve to have the opportunity to have gravel or paved road. They deserve that, and I'm all about paving those roads. So I would like to. You've got your amendment on the floor, councillors. And I would ask if you would say to our staff, because it gives them time to get out, do the assessment, and come back to us in June, where we're at the peak of getting out to get construction contracts at hopefully a good price. When we went out back in 21 to do the 10th line, we got a very good price from Lisbon Paving. They came in with a very good price, and we were able to do that road for minimal money. So I would suggest we want to do this again. If you're okay with that, I would say that staff, let's give them a recommendation to go out and look at these roads, come back with the financial analysis so that when the report comes to us in June about the surplus, if the money is there, we go ahead and do the project. Didn't cost the taxpayers anything. So I leave it at that, and then I'm going to go. I'm sorry. What I'm going to do, Councillor Scott, if you don't mind, I had Councillor Ferragini next, Councillor Verkuyt next, and then Councillor Scott. So back at the top.
Well, originally when I put my hand up, it was because Councillor Harper had touched on the ADT, so I was going to ask Tony if he could clarify when these numbers were last done, because I'm assuming that a lot of them are random. I can't see all of them have been super recent.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Ferragini, all roads were done in 2023.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. I still would like to leave my amendment the way it stands. I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it still comes to budget regardless, so council will still have a wholesome discussion and we'll have that decision at that time. And staff will have those numbers for us at that time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kike, next.
Yeah, so I want to leave my amendment to his amendment to stand as well for Coffee Line 4 and Simcoe Road. I think it also fits in with our strategic priorities as far as health and safety goes. Traffic safety is one thing because gravel roads deteriorate quickly. We're seeing it now with the potholes. With spring thaw, things get terrible. But the dust issues, it's definitely a health concern. And yeah, it's always going to come down to budget time on what we can afford. But to all respect to councillors that live in town, I drive these roads, and I purposely, I'm in town, I drive home, I take different routes home so I can drive on these roads. So these aren't just mysterious places. This is like 2/7 of our town that people live in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott?
I was just going to say, my comments about having a year-over-year strategy, I prefer Councillor Ferragini and Councillor Verkuyken's amendment to send it to budget time. If we have a surplus in June, I don't know that we do today. Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, you do already know that, but I'm not opposed to playing with that surplus when the report comes. But I have to tell you, I still believe in trying to get away from the ad hoc cherry picking of, oh, well, this year we can afford to do this road, so let's just do it. I do want to have a 10-year plan. My point was our existing 10-year plan didn't capture gravel roads or low volume roads, and I think we need to be able to see all of it to chip away with it. And yes, at the surplus, or we can't run a deficit, but at the surplus time, if there is enough money, I'm not opposed to picking a few of the top unfunded roads and funding them that way, but I want to see the overall plan so I can understand where it all would fit in.
Okay, thank you. Further comments or questions? All right, so we see none. So we have an amendment on the floor, and it is, can you just reread it again so we have an understanding of it, or are you able to put it up for us? Thank you. So the recommendation is that report AM 2025-1 entitled Gravel Roads Conversion Updates be received for information, and that Ferragini and Verkuyken have amended it to read that, and that the paving of line 10 from Side Road 5 to County Road 27 be included in the 2026 budget for council's consideration, and that the paving of line 4 from 230 meters west of Side Road 10 to Coffee Road, as well as Simcoe Road from 130 meters south of Canal Road to Tornado Road, be included in the 2026 budget for council's consideration. Is that correct or not?
We should include Coffee Road from, or is it there? Coffee Road from line 4 to, it's not all the way to line 5.
70 meters. Yeah, it's the first one. Yeah, from Coffee Road from line 4 to north of Coffee Road, 965 meters. If you can add that in there. Okay. Okay. So that's the amendment on the floor, so you'll be voting on the amendment. We see it, everybody's good with it? Mover and seconder is fine? Okay, so I'll call for all in favor of the amendment. Okay, supported, okay. That carried, okay, so we will vote on the recommendation as amended. And the same mover and seconder is on the floor, so recommendation as amended. All in favor? Carried, thank you. It's done. Moving on. Thank you, Tony, and Elsie, thank you very much. Okay, we're on to the 12.4. It's the business budget and business plan, the PSAB budget reconciliation. So recommendation that we have report FIN 2025-5 entitled 2025 Budget and Business Plan and PSAB Budget Reconciliation be received, and the council will receive the final 2025 Budget and Business Plan and PSAB Budget Reconciliation documents. Questions or concerns with this one? It's just the PSAB funding. It's a way of showing our budgets. Okay, seeing none. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Giordano. All in favor? Carried, thank you. We're on to 12.5. It's the tax write-offs. So I have a recommendation that report FIN 2025-07 entitled sections 357, 358 property tax write-offs be received, and that the property taxes and accumulated interest for the years 2023 and 2024 in the amount of $47,589.12, itemized in report FIN 2025-07 be approved for write-offs. Mover seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Verkuyk, seconded by Councillor Ferragini. Question concerns with this report? It's an annual report. We have write-offs every year. It's impact of adjusting. Okay, no questions. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, we are on to requests for staff reports. Councillor Harper.
Mayor, it was just, thank you. It was just iterated by my colleague here and myself in regards to having our gravel roads and our older roads be put into a 10-year strategy, and I'd like a staff report be collected on what that strategy would look like for us to be brought to council for consideration.
Further reports, you had your hand up, okay, another one? We'll just, we'll put them both on the floor, or do you want to discuss? You have two of them? Okay, so we must, okay, he seconded his. Councillor Scott seconded. Any questions or concerns with his request? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Councillor Giordano.
Okay, so I got two. The first one is like a staff report on how we can look at maybe the Vaughan model for our parking. And when it comes to, we have so many people that are using our roads as a semi-permanent parking spot. A lot of residents can't even use when they have guests come over because people are constantly parking in front of their homes and using it all the time. The way the Vaughan model works is, I believe there's no parking between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. or whatever, so there's no overnight parking. But what the beauty of it is that they actually have an app that you put on your phone, you register the license plate, and every house or every resident gets X amount of days per year, where if they have guests or something like that, they can use it. And it's a registered system, so you can get ticketed if you're no longer registered. But if I have 3 or 4 people staying over one night because we had a banger or something, right? Everyone's hanging out for New Year's, and I want them to be safe and not drink and drive. I can register those cars; they can park on the road safely. So again, a staff report to look into how we can possibly get people who are habitually abusing our roads from their own personal parking spots, but as well as look at some of the technology that's out there to maybe figure out a way that's not only positive, but then if you need additional spots, it's potentially a revenue generator, and or again, it just gets rid of some of the bad actors. You know, they park 6 months out of the year somewhere else. All of a sudden, spring and summer and winter, then you know the roads are their permanent parking spots. So I'd like staff to look at that and come back with us maybe some solutions, see what's out there. There's some pretty cool things.
Okay, mover second to put this on the floor with. Okay, second by Councillor Dykey. Question, concerns on that request? Councillor Harper.
For clarification, I believe there was a bylaw put in place that you can only park for a certain amount of days. Do we not have a bylaw in place? 24 hours. So we have a bylaw put in place that already hinders that. Would this negate that, or are we just looking for additional stuff? I'll put that over to Councillor.
All right, so what people do is they'll park somewhere, then they'll move, they'll park, but they'll just keep using the roads over and over again. This is anywhere on the roads. You're allowed X amount of times per year, and that's it. You can't use it as a permanent parking solution for 6 months out of the year. So that's the one I've seen. That's one I've used when I lived there, and I thought it was highly effective. And you can use the app. It's you can book 2, 3, 4 cars, but you can't do 3, 4 cars 6 months out of the year. You get a certain amount, and that's it. So again, it prevents people from habitually abusing it, and I think it's a solution that we should look at. I'm sure staff will come with all kinds of cool things that are out there.
Okay, so that would be community-wide, correct? This is an app that, yeah, okay. You moved it already, right? Okay. Any further comments or questions? See, all in favor of the staff report request? Okay. And you had a second one?
So the second one is, I drive through other downtown cores from other towns, and the appearance in Bradford to me is weak. We have some pretty deteriorating looking buildings. We have murals that are peeling off, or some paint that looks a little. So I'd like the staff report on what's the life cycle that we give to these either existing murals or walls that the paint's coming off, and is there any type of life cycle or some sort of a I guess enforcement or something that we can say, okay, well, if we're gonna do it, if we're gonna do it on a private property, you get 10 years, and 10 years you need to, the cost is to the property owner, you need to maintain that, and pull it down so we can re-mural it, or we need to put a program in place for the beautification of those walls, because there's some walls that are looking pretty, pretty beat up. So I know we have some other programs and everything else, but I'd like to look at, is there other options, or maybe we can add some other incentive for some of these walls to beautify our main strip.
Okay, so mover to put, okay, seconded, okay. Comments?
Well, I would just comment that, and perhaps the CIO can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are getting a report through our Department of Economic Development on the mural program. We created the mural program end of last term, thereabouts, and Jennings Karate did a great new mural. I certainly know at least one of the ones that you were mentioning, the owners talked about coming through the new program to replace the existing mural, and certainly we want to see that happen, but I believe it's coming in the very near future through the Economic Development report on community improvement plans and some of our other existing downtown revitalization programs.
Yeah, so I want to compliment what that's doing with some rules and guidelines around it. And basically, if somebody's going to put a mural up, you can't just leave it until it deteriorates, right? So there has to be some sort of guidelines put in place. So, if somebody does a mural, or if the property exchanges, who owns the mural, who's responsible for the mural. I'd like a little more guidelines on that, because I've seen some other places that they have certain programs, not only incentives, but they also have rules in place if you are going to do it.
Okay. Yeah, it could be. If you, I guess if let's say if you don't agree with that report after Councilor Giordano, then you could actually say, no, I'd like to see more into this report, because we will have that come back, and you'll be able to input those types of things you'd like to see. And we have ACT out here now. We have the Director of Growth Services here, so they're listening, and they can see what to put in that report. So if you're good with that, we can wait for that report, because it's coming soon, and then we can, if you're not satisfied, we can add to that report later. So, okay, is that fine with everybody? Fine with everybody? Okay. Okay, good. No further staff reports required. Okay. So we are done with that. We're on to 14, moving into committee of whole. So council resolve itself in committee of whole at 8:39. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sandu, seconded by Councilor Harper. And all in favor? Good. Deputy, are you going to ask, do they want a break? Do you guys need a break? So let's take a full five. So back at 8:45.
At 8:45 p.m. Any declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature? Councillor Ferragini?
On item 15.3.3, in regards to the official plan amendment, the Integrity Commissioner had contacted me. The applicant had contacted the Integrity Commissioner in regards to the fact that my personal residence abuts the property. So I had a meeting with the Integrity Commissioner, and moving forward, I have been advised to recuse myself from any conversations in regards to this application.
Okay, thank you. That is noted. Okay, moving along. 15.3, staff reports. 15.3.1, recommendation that report EDO 2025-01 entitled Industrial Areas CIP Application IEA CIP 2025-01 tank traders be received for information, and that council approve the tank traders application for 285 Dissette Street under the Industrial Areas Community Improvement Plan for $47,509.91, subject to the following breakdown. $10,000 under Program 3, Fees and Permits Grant Up Program, $37,509.91 under Program 4, which is Renovation Grants Program, and that council authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into the appropriate agreement with the applicants detailing terms and conditions of the grant approval, agreement process, and payment schedule, subject to the parameters of the Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury Industrial Areas Community Improvement Plan, April 2022. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconder. Okay, Mayor Leduc, any comments or questions? Councillor Stock?
So I'm going to speak in favor of this briefly. It does what the program sets out in terms of it will help create some additional employment, and I think more significantly for the residents in that area of the ward, this is the strange part of Dissette Street where there's industrial, there's commercial, there's agriculture, and there's residential all on top of each other. And myself and other members had the chance to tour the property on Earth Day last year, and they've done a really fantastic job already at cleaning up the yard and making some significant improvements. So it looks like a much more organized, clean work yard, upgrading the building further in a way that's going to improve the appearance, but also allow it to be more conducive to growing employment, I think is exactly why we have this industrial community improvement plan. And I'm happy to put some public dollars towards achieving those goals, because this has been a good corporate citizen for a little over a year now, and I'd like to see them continue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Verkuyk?
If it fits the criteria, I guess I have to vote for it, but I'd like a staff report on how to just cancel CIP programs altogether. Justify it for me, because I don't get it. It's corporate welfare. Like, just stop. They don't need it. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. We don't need to subsidize that.
You're right. This application came through the process that's currently there, and going forward, it is being dealt with. Mayor Leduc?
Yeah, so I'm going to support this for pretty well the same reasons Councillor Scott said. He left me a couple of points I could put in there. It's a 10-to-1. It's for every public dollar. It's a $10 asset by them. It's a $400,000 upgrade. I think they did a great job. It's like Councillor Scott said, they did a great job of the property. They've done a lot. It's 30 employees at this place. So to me, this is good money spent. So I am in full support of this, and I will support this application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferragini?
Thank you. To Councillor Verkuyck's comments, I've felt the same way when a lot of these come up. It all comes down to a cost of business. Do you think that this company would have not done this if the application, if the grants were not available? I don't think so. I think they still would have went through with it based on the criteria and what they have what they are using the grants on. However, it has gone through the process, and from my understanding, this is the last one that's come through the process. So moving forward, they're on hiatus now, and we will be looking at our CIP program, and council will decide if we want to continue, if we don't, and what to specifically use it for. So I'm happy to see it's the last one, but yeah, same opinion, cost of doing business.
Thank you. Councillor Dykey?
Situations where a business would have still moved forward if some of the grants, they take advantage. They don't take advantage, but there's some situations where I felt that in the past that maybe that money shouldn't have been used for that, but there is the reality of especially in the downtown core of some of these businesses when it comes to accessibility, fire safety, and fixing up their facades. I always looked at that. That was the basic. When you do a facade improvement, then eventually the buildings are more assessed differently or at a certain point, and then as a business model, that money that you put out, you eventually get back long term. There was a great report years ago that it shows the municipality invests into these local businesses, and the money comes back long term. So it's a little sting at the beginning, but it balances out. But when it comes to the program, I always have a give and take on the situation. But we have to invest in ourselves as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Giordano.
So I wasn't going to support this, but I look at the application. It meets its merits. I'm glad we're killing it, the CIP program, that is. But I also have another issue with a propane facility or a gas facility. That's what this is, correct? Right next to residential. I was actually blowing out the windows of my grandparents' basement living there when I first got married at Downsview when that took place. So to support something that again, I know we have industrial right there. We have residential. It's just, I don't know. It's not the right place to have it. There's other places in town.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, carried. All right, moving along, recommendation that report COR 2025-1 entitled Boulevard Maintenance Standards be received for information that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council adopt the draft Boulevard Maintenance bylaw attached to this report. Moved by and seconded by Councillor Giordano and Councillor Ferragini. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, sir.
I'm excited for this. Much needed. I think the biggest issue we have too is enforcement. So it's one thing to put rules in place; it's another thing to enforce them. And so I look forward to this, it being implemented on all accounts. It's definitely needed.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Harper.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. If I could get the Director up, I'd like to clarification on ROWs and just basically what that looks like, because I believe a lot of this in regards to permitted, not permitted within the row will be a big line of communication, and then having that publicly stated today will help actually delineate a lot of confusion around this. I'd like just ask the Director just basically talk a little about what's changing in regards to the ROWs and the row, and just put that out there for a lot of public information, because I know what it's going to come down to is really talking about what is and what isn't. And when I look at the permitted and versus not permitted, I see a big change, and I think that'll be beneficial to beautifying and taking a little bit of land ownership and possession of our properties instead of being told you can't do that. And if somebody rats you out or complains, enforcement had no jurisdiction but to enforce the older proposal. So I like this, but maybe you could clarify that for us.
Thank you, Councillor Harper, and through Deputy Mayor Sandu. So take a step back. If you recall, in 2023, we presented a report to Council that dealt with driveway widening, streamlining some internal processes, and really focusing on customer service and better administration of the work that we do. I believe this request came out of that staff report, and it was, we need to communicate better with the residents who are seeking more functionality in denser neighborhoods. They want to build walking paths and gardens, improve their lands. And when we take a look at our bylaws, the bylaws with respect to a right-of-way, so this area between the traveled portion of the road and the front private property line, our bylaws basically say you can't touch it without town permission. So additional communication was required
for public information to say, well, what extent, if any, modifications can happen within the right-of-way. So we went through a process of consultation internally with staff to identify who are the stakeholders, what type of infrastructure exists there, and what can we get behind in terms of a staff for modifications that can exist within the right-of-way. So the table that you see here with not permitted and permitted is the manifestation of that process. You know, if we were going to encapsulate that or summarize that in a couple words, basically any features that can reasonably cause an impact issue for town infrastructure, town operations, or a safety concern it fell within the non-permitted bucket of things. So you can imagine things like raised features, retaining walls, armor stone, patios, structures, basically anything that's above grade and has a certain rigidity to it where a snowplow comes by, an operations staff comes by and hits this thing, town operations come by, try to do some maintenance and hits these things, causes safety concerns for those staff, damage to town property, and then obviously damage to the renovations that occur. So we're trying to communicate with the public, yes, you can do some things, here are the things that we are in favor of, here are the things that we would caution you to stay away from, and then under the caveat that if any of these features cause an operational impact or a safety concern, the town reserves the right to request that removal. In review of our existing bylaws, we're of the opinion that no bylaws really need to change for that purpose, so we're going to bolster communications. That's going to be improvements to our website and an infographic pamphlet that when a complaint is received or an issue identified, town staff can go out and say, here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed, very clear standards for that, communicate those provisions to the resident, and then take it through a normal existing enforcement process. So in my opinion, I think this is an improvement for public relations and the town communicating our positions in the way and manner in which we engage our residents.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Director. That's actually really great to see this. And let's talk a little bit about permitted driveway extensions in regards to this. Can some of that communication be permitted there and part of this communication post? And then certainly this will allow us a lot more landowners or homeowners to extend that, maybe not the curb, but maybe a little portion of like either a walkway or pathway or an extra driveway extension. Does any of that change in regards to what we have? Like, I know that we've had there were complaints in regards to some residents doing driveway extensions or turf grass and stuff or rock and stuff, and they fall within the complaint zone of like 8 years or something like that. What does that mean for them in regards to this updated bylaw?
So these conversations get a bit nuanced for the common public to understand, but the zoning bylaw sets the standard for maximum driveway widths. The zoning bylaw applies to private lands. So what we're saying is the zoning bylaw remains unchanged. Those provisions exist, and the maximum width is contingent on your garage size and the type of housing that you have. So it's relative to kind of the footprint of your building and how big your garage door is as built. So we're leaving that unchanged. We're not dealing with the zoning bylaw. We're not dealing with the private lands. We're looking at the municipal right-of-way and what can the town kind of stomach within that area. What we're saying is if the zoning bylaw allows you a certain width, you can continue that width down to the right-of-way, continue that down to the curb stop to access your driveway to the roadway. What we're not in favor of is a driveway width extension that solely exists within the right-of-way. So if you said, well, I'm not going to modify the private side of things, I just want to build out like a perpendicular parking space in the right-of-way, what we're saying is the right-of-way is not intended for that feature. It's intended to connect your private driveway to the municipal roadway. You know, you can continue what's allowed through the zoning bylaw on the private side, carry that down to the roadway, but not create a sole and specific parking space solely within the right-of-way. And the purpose behind that is it leads to damages of infrastructure, damages of town trees, utilities, telecommunication boxes, sod, mud onto roadways, mud onto sidewalks, these sorts of things, because the way people drive is not consistent. They don't park and drive in the same way every single day.
And for just the average resident, this probably will be looking at drive extensions. This is probably the season we start seeing a lot of upticks. Where do they go to get this information, and how do they reach out?
Yeah, great question. So a few years ago, we did include some specific information on this on the town's website. So we have some visual graphics there in terms of, you know, the private side driveway widening, what you're allowed to do, related to sections through the zoning bylaw, and then also kind of a little bit of an applications guide or a guide to driveway extensions that was put together, let's say within the last 5 years or so. It's my intent as we go to improve the communications, develop the infographic, to review this webpage as well and make sure that everything's kind of moving in the same direction.
Okay, Councilor Kite.
Yeah, thanks for this report. In the communication, can we stress the importance of the trees on the right-of-way, that they're town-owned trees? We've invested a significant amount of money into those trees and how we can protect them. And because people do stuff around the tree roots and they die.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councilor Cake, a great point. The last item that you see in the non-permitted right-of-way is no modifications within 1.5 meters of street furniture. Trees are included within that definition. And last year, through the Green Committee and Council, we also passed the public tree bylaw. That's the first of its nature in Bradford and puts specific provisions in place to protect the boulevard canopy and those town assets. So I definitely agree, and that'll be a focal point.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving along, 15.3.3. Councilor Ferragini declared on this, and it's noted that he's vacating the chair. Recommendation that report PLN 2025-18 be received for information, that Council endorsed the inclusion of the lands municipally known as 23 Brownlee Drive and 2820, 2824, and 2848 Line 5 within the Bradford Urban Area Settlement Area boundary, that Council requests that the related application for amendment to the County of Simcoe official plan proceed for consideration by County Council and the province, and that subject to adoption of amendment to the County of Simcoe official plan for inclusion of the subject lands within the Bradford Urban Area Settlement Area boundary, Council directs staff to present the required local official plan amendment with related adopting bylaw to Town Council, inclusive of modifications recommended by Town staff in Section 3.7 of Report PLN 2025-18. I have a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor, please. Mayor Leduc, Councilor Harper. Colleagues, before we get into the questions and answer, I'm going to ask Mr. Givens to come up and I believe he has a little presentation. I'm also going to invite our staff, whether it's Mr. Weeb or our director, to come up, because I'm sure there's going to be questions for our staff too.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. I'm going to be very brief. The report that you have in front of you from your staff is a report that we support. That would be obvious. We've made the application. Staff at the county and your staff have recommended approval, which cannot happen until the county's official plan is approved, and then you can approve an official plan amendment. But I think at this time, as staff have tried to find a way to move this forward, and they're using the term endorse it. They were asking council to endorse the decision to move this forward, to draw the land into the settlement boundary. There's a lot of detail that still comes forward later with the draft plan, not at this stage. But what would be set up by the endorsement, it would give the county the mood of the council to move forward with this as they amend the county's official plan. And it was already in the draft of the county's official plan, but then it died with the province, and we're assuming at some point in time that'll be given some life again. At this stage, I thought it would be helpful to give you the only comments we have that we would be concerned about, and it's some wording that I think can be corrected, and I've spoken to your staff about that, where they talk about minimums for 6 meters, for example, on the walkway. That opens it up to being much larger if it's a minimum. We would prefer to see the wording be 6 meters. We can still sit down the draft plan if there's some situations where something larger would be appropriate, but not to just make it open that anything beyond 6 meters is still appropriate. And with respect to the roads, the 26-meter road, that is the collector road, we have some sections where they're going to be a bit wider than 26 meters to include daylighting triangles or some parking or something like that. That's a wording change that can be corrected as well. I don't think it's a major issue. But my client is quite pleased with the way the process has now unfolded. We still have a lot of work to do with the draft plan of subdivisions and the zoning that still have to come forward. So we're not at the end of the rope on this one. But I thought there might be some questions that you might have to ask me at this stage, and I'm happy to take them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dykey and then Mayor Leduc.
Well, thank you. I have quite a few questions. Okay, I have quite a few questions. I still feel that all the residents' concerns have not been addressed, and you can see by tonight the three presentations that came forward, you know, they voiced their opinion, but I don't think that they've been heard, or there's no guarantee that I've seen in writing for certain things. The first question I'd like to start off, when you planned in this walkway, and I know the subdivision residents with these beautiful estate homes on Brownlee requested a walkway or easement between their property and the homes. Why isn't there a walkway or easement to the north with all the residents on the 6th line? There's, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 homes there, and that wasn't provided with a walkway. That's one I heard that concerned. What happens in a case where there's weeping tiles that these homes were built, I guess, in the 80s, and there's weeping tiles going onto these properties? What assurances will they have so they wouldn't, the stormwater management wouldn't back up and they wouldn't have their basements damaged? That's one big question. And how do we, when it came to the school, the concerns I have is, we all know that the schools we have now, we have parking problems around these schools. And when you designed this particular subdivision, you went from the 6th to the 6th with a 6th line to the 5th, and as one main artery that comes down it. I'm concerned about the safety of the children and the residents. This is a very high dense area, and parking and all these is going to be a concern. These are my three questions. And you designed your subdivision in a fashion that you're putting a park onto Brownlee, and there's no sidewalks on Brownlee. So what safety measures, and that's why I look at this whole process as this should have been planned as a community plan and tie this in. And I know you have some planning features, but to the subdivision to the east, Baywood and Wellington did a great job with their parks. And you know, when you look at that subdivision versus the density of this, the two are completely different subdivisions. This is a higher density subdivision versus what was built to the east is dense, but not as dense as this. And I just wanted to hear some of your response to my four questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gibbon.
Thank you very much, Councillor. The matter before you is not the plan of subdivision. The details that you're talking about are in a plan of subdivision. That will come before you later, should we be approved for an official plan amendment. That detail comes later. With respect to some of the issues I've heard from residents, for example, there was a lady today that spoke about the concern about dewatering of their wells. That's a standard requirement that would be imposed on the draft plan of subdivision. There has to be a testing of the current conditions of the well, so that there can be, if there was any kind of drawdown as a result of any growth taking place around that area that draws down their well, the landowner that has caused that problem has to restore the condition or find an alternative. So that's a standard in a condition of plan of subdivision.
That would come in the plan of subdivision.
Those are all plans of subdivision issues.
Guarantee in writing to the municipality.
It's a standard condition. It's a standard condition.
On those items, like it says, I feel that we're doing an official plan now. Why the rush now? Why wouldn't you you wait until we finish our official plan and then come on board with our official plan for the whole community, or rather than jumpstarting the situation. So that's my fifth question. I'd like to have an answer for the park, an answer on the school, and I'm also going to ask for a recorded vote when this comes to get voted on.
Well, with respect to the reason why we have the application, is that we started this 8 years ago, and we're still trying to get an official plan approved. And to go into any further detail on the plan of subdivision would be premature until we have the comfort that we have an official plan that is going forward.
Why, you as a professional planner, isn't there a better way to safeguard our children around these schools and the parks? That's my question to you. And could this be changed?
It's a good question. Typically what happens is we coordinate with the school board on what they would normally want to do, because they have the responsibility to take care of the children as much as the parents do at the time. My wife was a teacher. I know what they do. So that we would work with the school board to make sure that everything is done possible to make sure there's a safe and secure situation here.
It seems to me that once these schools are built, the cars aren't really allowed to really come into these areas. And when I look at Marshview, and look at Bray Boeuf, and I look at some of the other subdivisions, schools in these subdivisions, the parents are all parking on the street, and the kids, everybody drives their children to school, no one walks. And even this here, to see the continuity of a design, to see a school and how the people have to drive there. I'm just very concerned about the safety for the children there. And the committee, we have a traffic committee, and we try to solve these problems, but it just seems like a problem is going to be solved here. You showed in the plans. I know you're moving it forward. You want this thing approved, but why do we need to have this problem put onto a school board and ourselves? There must have been a better way to design it. Those are some of my questions on that. And same with the weeping tiles. What guarantee do the residents have with in the subdivision agreement, so they're not going to have drainage problems? In the spring, I took a drive on Brownlee, and I was amazed with the water flow that comes from the west to the east. And I'm just concerned that these stormwater management ponds are designed that they can handle that, handle the flow, because there's a tremendous amount of water, and it goes back to when the subdivision was built by Lormel, that this area was a very high water table, or there's a lot of water that moves from the west to the east. And I just hope that the infrastructure is big enough to accommodate it. And same with the sewer lines. I know you're going to do this. You talk about doing this in a two-phase system, but you're tapping into existing infrastructure on Simcoe Road that, so we don't run into problems. I'm just very cautious. I'm not for this plan. The residents have many of them have come forward to me and dislike the design of it. Everybody's not against growth. They're not against the growth because we all need to. So the community has a growth. We need the cash flow. We need the investment in our community. They're better off to have a community that grows than a dead community. But the thing is, I find this whole development a little too dense. And you look at some of the other subdivisions. There's Great Golf there went fantastic job when they planned their subdivision, and this could have been just as nice as the way Great Golf has done it. So I'm just a little disappointed that it could have been designed a little nicer. Those are my comments.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Dyke. There's others that has their hands up. I'm gonna move to the next speakers, and if there are some other questions, we will come back. I have Mayor Leduc, Councillor Giordano, then I'll go in the order that I had seen the hands. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Thomas or Alan, for the report. It's a good report. It's a report you can see that staff are listening to the residents' concerns. We have a lot of modifications in here that actually addresses a lot of the concerns of the staff, of the residents. So I'm in favor of this report being OPA, and I can answer the question, why is it coming forward? It's because it's actually the PPS, 2024 PPS was set up. They're allowed to do a settlement boundary expansion. This is good planning. This makes sense. We are expanding. We've already did an MZO for the property to the west of it to incorporate a high school. We have two properties there that we've actually done that. This is the logical expansion zone for that to come across from the east to the west. This is a property that brings in $69 million in DCs. That is not part of EPA 3. We have an EPA 3 plan that we have to pay back. This contributes to that payback where it doesn't impact the residents. The tax revenue off this property is there at $2.8 million a year to help us support programs through our community. This meets the PPS 2024 statement. It meets the county's OPA, and it meets our OPA. So it meets our official plan. So to me, this is prudent planning. This is rural lands. It's not agriculture. We have a boundary expansion coming of 450 hectares, which is 1,100 acres coming up. This is going to be counted into that. Things changed based on the 2022 and the province changed the Planning Act and moved it out to 2051. It moved back our official plan to 2021. So we were to plan from 2021 to 2051. This is a time for this. It is the correct time. This is going to be allocated to our 1,100 acres of land. So if you're here to support agricultural lands, this is the project to support. This does not touch agricultural lands. There is a financial part of the PPS that states these new projects have to be financially sustainable for the life of the project, meaning that we don't tax the residents today. This project has to self-support itself. So that's what this is all about when it comes down to it. It's there. It shows us at $2.8 million tax. We have a little difference here. But the modifications in here for this OPA, that's why it's here. We have modifications to help us through this process. This will be sent up to the county and kicked back to us after for approval. But we have covered a lot of the issues that the residents talked about, and I'm okay to support this the way it is. There might be some small changes in the future. Mr. Gibbons, you brought in a question about the minimum width, the 6-meter minimum width. I'm not sure I have an issue with that right now. So I'm not sure I'll work on that, but I can tell you that I'm okay with the modifications with the staff wrote. I thought it's a good report by Alan, and I'm ready. It's been 2017 since we've been dealing with this. It's time to move this to the OPA because we have to do planning for 1,100 acres. This is 140 acres that takes away from bringing in agricultural lands. If you support agriculture, if you support keeping agriculture, you need to support this OPA. This is a good OPA. It works perfect for our planning. So to me, a lot of the issues that were brought up tonight, Mr. Gibbons, you've addressed them. They are subdivision planning detailed subdivisions. We haven't done the zoning. This is just the first step. OPA, zoning, draft plan of subdivision. So that's the way it works. I know we'll get to those issues that the residents are talking about. We will definitely address them. But as it sits right now, this is just the OPA, which we're moving forward, and I'm in full support of moving this OPA forward tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Giordano.
All right. Well, this has been somewhat challenging for some of our residents and also some of us on council here as well. We're tasked with not being cheerleaders for either side, but we have to do what's right. So I'm going to use my kind of pragmatic approach to this. So bear with me. I have said many times, both in council, even before I was elected, that I'm pro the right growth, not just growth for the sake of growth. And whether it's any provincial targets or strong mayor powers, that doesn't affect my decisions. But there is some points I'd like to bring up to the public. So I have some notes here, so bear with me as I read through this. As far as I know, the town was never given an opportunity to buy the land. So when people say like, oh, why can't you just keep it, or you should have bought it, we never had that opportunity that I was aware of to purchase that land. It was purchased and sold as lands do, and it was not an opportunity for us. So that's unfortunate, because it would have been nice for us to have a municipal run golf course. The second thing is that the developer, to my knowledge, has met with all council members, and to be fair to them, they have built some really good subdivisions in Bradford. It's not like they're a hit it and leave it type of a builder that you see in some municipalities. They're very active. They've sponsored the mayor and council events. They're active in the community. So at the end of the day, it's important to acknowledge their participation with the town. They are good partners. We're here today to talk about adding this land into the official plan. So I have some concerns with this, because
Can I go on a point of order first, Deputy Mayor? I just want to go back on your comment about they sponsor the mayor.
I said
They
mayor and
sponsor.
council.
they sponsor events that the council, mayor and council
That's what I
support.
said.
No, you kind of hinted that it was the mayor. So just if you could clarify a little further, sir, I appreciate that.
Sure, they've been active, as long as I've been on council, they've been active in sponsoring town events through the mayor and council. Does that help? Yeah. I don't know what they did before with you. So now here's my concerns. So number one is that, and I spoke to the CEO about this. So first thing, okay, so there's a $12 million, I guess, memorandum of understanding that we're supposed to get when it was done with the MZO. Now, if we're not going through the MZO, that $12 million, it's assumed that's over and above, and we're still getting from the builder. That's question number one. Okay, number two is, if they're going to go through, so I just want to make sure I get this right. So, when I was reading the report, it looked like we were only, and this is the conversation I had with the CAO, is that this is only to approve the official plan. But on page 4, it's actually tied to the site plan, the previous site plan that we've seen, which I do not support. So how can I go ahead and support today when there's a language tied to that in there? That's a challenge I have that needs to get addressed. Also, again, we heard from the gentleman speaking earlier that you mentioned that all the environmental assessments and everything else will be completed in the future. But what I'm worried is how the language was written is that if once we get into this official plan, how many opportunities does council have in the future in order to protect our residents? And those are concerns that I have, that the residents have. And again, it seems like it's black and white until you read the lines, and then there's language in there that gets my guard up. So I'll finish my statement, then maybe you can answer that. At the end of the day, if you look at where this golf course is, it definitely, you have, now we have, I guess, development taking place because of the school to the left of it. So you're going to have this big section. And if you look at Bradford, we're pretty, compared to Innisfil and other places, we actually have our housing kind of concentrated in an area. So to me, it's smart planning. But at the same time, we have to spend an absolute fortune on acquiring parklands. Well, this was a golf course. It was already, suited for that. But instead, it's actually max density. So again, that's some of the issues I have with this. It's not the type of subdivision that I see a lot of value for why they're doing it, but it's not something that at this time I'm willing to support. And based on how this is written, I have issues with it because again, there's language in there that ties back to that original proposed plan. The other thing too is that I'm just gonna go through here that when it comes to the density and everything else, I understand the value. So when I met with the developer, and I believe you showed it to other members of council, and Mayor, you mentioned this. So a cost to run a subdivision, a lot of times these subdivisions are built, and then all of a sudden there's a cost over and above it that taxpayers have to subsidize to maintain that subdivision. With the density here, it looks like it's almost cash neutral to run the subdivision. My question is at what cost to the residents? Because I get it, but at the same time, when I saw the subdivision plan, I'm like, this is way too much density for something that I'm comfortable with. If it had a much larger significant parklands and some other stuff in there, I always, I'll go back to Councilor Dykey. I moved to Bradford and purchased in the Great Gulf subdivision because of how that subdivision was laid out with all the nature trails and the beautiful bridge and the pathways and all the green spaces all around. And that was a strategic move for me to do that because that was the type of subdivision I wanted to live in. I'm worried that this is an investor haven with all the density. And again, when we talked earlier about parking and all the issues that we have across town, a subdivision like this, I have concerns. So if it's tied to the official plan in any way, I can't move forward with it. So I need clarification on that. And then lastly, some of the amendments that were done, whatever the buffer zones are and everything else, the town staff have to maintain those properties. And there's little slivers here and there and little pathways and everything else. Well, that's a cost to the town to run. It's not free. So with all that maintenance and everything else, I look at it and say, well, if you were to take all that, square footage of all that buffer zone and everything else, and if it was at a park or something else, that'd be much more significant and worth the investment in town staff to maintain it and a lot more used than just a buffer zone. I understand why the buffer zone was there, because people were asking for a buffer zone. So I'm torn with this whole concept of the subdivision, but I want to support the right development. I think we can do that later on, but right now I'm not seeing that, and I have issues. So if the CAO can maybe address some of those concerns, hopefully I wasn't too long on that, but those are those are my feelings. Again, you know, everyone has to understand. Everyone says, "Oh, I'm not against growth. I'm not against development," but it has to be right. Well, I can't make a decision unless I know it can be made right. But right now I'm not there. So help me get there.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't think you were too long. Those are the questions you have looking for answers, and that's your right. I'm going to turn it over to CAO. Some of the questions that you asked, the $12 million commitment benefit to the community, commitment and all that stuff, even though it's in the report, you are right in asking that, and let's hear from the CAO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Councilor Giordano is referring to a component of Minister's zoning order requests that Bayview Wellington submitted to the town about 18 months ago, thereabouts. Part of their proposal was a response to a MZO request protocol that council had set, in which the expectation was if a developer landowner was going to ask our council to support an MZO, there had to be something in it for the community. That could be a facility, it could be a donation, it could be a service. It was really ultimately up to council to decide what was worthy of consideration. So with respect to the MZO request submitted by Bayview Wellington, they included a pledge to donate $12 million to the town in support of the community hub facility that council has recently completed at 177 Church Street, or any other purpose in council's discretion. So it's fair to say that that submission or that pledge was specific to the MZO request. What our staff have done with respect to the reports in front of you tonight is to essentially capture that notion of that pledge and associate it with the official plan amendment adoption that's in front of you tonight. So it's one of the recommended modifications that there be verbiage within an OPA that will come back in front of you that would set out that when your next decisions are made on a plan of subdivision and rezoning, that those approvals also capture assurance that the pledge would follow through into these approvals. So that's how it's set out in the report. We didn't want to lose track of that pledge, and essentially move the pledge from an MZO into the amendment that's in front of you tonight. Quickly, I'll speak to the questions, the comments that Councilor Giordano had with respect to what's the tie between the official plan amendment and an ultimate subdivision approval. And I would invite you to go back to the wording in the amendment itself. It does not attach the proposed subdivision to it. It speaks to what I would describe as lofty goals or even expectations for what you'd want to see in your ultimate approval of the subdivision. So there's pieces here under the vision for the ultimate development of the lands, community structure for what's expected, and it talks about parks and heritage, natural heritage system, connectivity, integration of different housing types. All of these are important elements that will ultimately, first of all, guide the design of the subdivision, but should also guide our staff's evaluation of it, and then ultimately council's approval of it. So that's a long-winded way of saying that, yes, a subdivision plan has been submitted. There's one attached to this report, as has been commented on a few times tonight. That's not in front of you for approval tonight. There's still work to be done, refinement of studies to be completed, which in turn can lead to refinement of that subdivision. So what you would be endorsing tonight is essentially the vision and expectations for the plan of subdivision, but not the subdivision itself.
Go ahead.
Okay, so again, some clarity, but also some concerns. So a couple more follow-up questions. What how did we get to $12 million? Was that based on number of units? Like where do we get that magic number from? And then ultimately, do we have that much density because of the 12 million? What happens if we cut the density down? Is it only 8 million? I'm okay to give up a few $1,000,000 to get rid of the density. Like I don't understand, you know, where that came from. So maybe that can be explained. And then number two, what I'm worried about is if we vote down this opportunity now to bring it to the official plan, can they just go to the LTB and say, yeah, get it in? Or does it help that we have our endorsement? But then following, if we do endorse it now, do we lose leverage moving forward at the next round? Because they already got the approval. And my last thing is that at the end of the day, I'm pretty consistent with how I look at all these developments, right? I want growth, but it's got to be right. And I think I have a pretty good knack for kind of honing it in. But at the end of the day, we have a boss, and it's the voters that put us here, right? It's not the developer, it's not the province, it's not any of that. So I hope the developer as well as the people appreciate what we're doing here, because it's not easy. We have to look at this, but ultimately I have two bosses, one up there and the one that put us in here. So I'm gonna do what's right, but I need these answers addressed before I can even make a decision.
Thank you. Mr. McKnight?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I can't speak to how the pledge or the donation figure was arrived at. I can speak a bit to densities in general with respect to really quite a broad policy framework that's in place now that municipalities are required to follow when making decisions on these development applications, as well as ultimately preparing a new official plan for the town. Certainly it's fair to discuss and have concerns and have perhaps different expectations with respect to the design of subdivisions, street layout, arrangement of parks and blocks and open spaces. But what you're seeing with this plan, as well as some recent ones, and certainly more to come in the future, are the densities that we'll need to embrace to meet the population targets that are set upon us. We don't really have much choice there. And as the mayor had indicated earlier, we're trying to realize our growth targets at the same time as minimizing impacts on the further consumption of agricultural lands and sensitive open spaces. So the nexus between those two things are denser neighborhoods than we have traditionally seen. So that's just a general comment on densities with respect to what we can expect to see in front of you moving forward. And I should turn this over to the actual planners and on our team. With respect to what happens if council doesn't deal with this tonight, can it be appealed? The applicant is actually in an appeal situation now, in that we are required to make decisions within specified time frames. We're well beyond that time frame. This could have been appealed quite some time ago, but Bayview Wellington has been working with our staff and with our community to avoid that and try to find something ultimately that council can support. So again, that appeal could happen at any time.
Okay, thank you. So, colleague, I've seen everyone's hands. So I have Councillor Verkuyk, Councillor Harper, Councillor Scott, then Mayor Leduc. So we're going to keep going till everyone's satisfied. So, Councillor Verkuyk.
So I got asked about this when I campaigned in 2022, and I said I was against it, and nothing's convinced me otherwise. I think if they want to go through the regular process and with the official plan and go through it, and then we'll see it, but I don't see why we're jumping the gun for them. As far as the $12 million or whatever that's been banting around, I'm not comfortable with that. I'd rather, if it ever came to pass, I'd rather see the residents that are affected get town sewers and water and not have to worry about their septic beds. I have a huge problem with this pathway between the backyards. It's not going to be safe, and it's going to be some nightmare for the town to maintain. So the whole plan is kind of not good. But I also promised on the campaign that I wasn't going to support it, and I'm not going to support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Some really good points and clarifications. Good questions by my colleagues. I won't really, double down on any of those questions. But from my understanding, we're just talking about an urban area settlement and area boundary approval. Basically, a different type of MZO, but not the MZO. It's not the SABE, which is the new setup, I believe, right? This is more just through the county, Simcoe County official plan process and through the province. The draft plan approval, and thank you, Mr. Gibbons, for clarifying that a lot of these issues that brought forward today by the residents actually reside in the draft plan approval. And you'll have to meet those clarifications, I believe, before any type of draft plan approval comes to council. From my time on here and doing the actual proper trainings from the AMO, that was my understanding. Could I get clarification that all those reports that everyone has been asking for, all those pretty much reside in the draft plan approval, and that still has to come to us, and we still have say to work with Baby Wellington in regards to some of these concerns?
If I may. Yes, you're right. The plan to subdivision process is still ahead of you, and it will be required for us to meet with the conditions that are imposed on the plan of subdivision. Once you've seen the design of the plan, it will get you a better idea of what the issues are, because you get into a detail level there that is very specific to the width of things, the depth, the layout, all of those, the grading, often, and ultimately the servicing. The issue of the schools is dealt with at that time, because you're dealing with a site plan for the school board is involved. All of that comes at that time. At this point in time, we are mandated by the province to achieve a density of 50 persons and jobs per hectare on a plan of urban area. And 50 persons and jobs is higher than you're used to, but that's being imposed on every municipality to minimize the need for agricultural land to be taken out of production.
I appreciate the 50 person per hectare mandate that you guys have been pushed for developers based on the province down to the municipality, but I can disagree with that. I believe Bradford, and this came from the mayor too. I mean, he's pushing the province and the strong mayor powers and the PPS demands, and he's sticking to what the guidelines have been telling him. Ultimately, though, these mandates are requests. Council has the ultimate say on how Bradford develops and where it develops, how it grows. So we can push back. If that means the province doesn't like it or they don't detract from it, I understand. But that's not what we're talking about here in regards to the PPS. That is really talking about the draft plan approval, correct? That's not the urban area boundary settlement today. So that's I want to make that clear, that divide clear today. That 50 person per hectare thing is draft plan approval that we could have ultimate say later down the road. Today we're talking about urban area settlement boundary.
We're talking about the settlement area, that's right, but you have to, as a planner, give you the information that you need to have to understand the scale of what we're proposing.
I appreciate that. I 100% appreciate the pressures and the mandates from the province down to municipality, and then you have to try to match that scale based on the mandates you're given. I also appreciate that, Baby Wellington has not pulled the trigger on the LTB or appeal process and wants to work with the town. I do believe, though, that Mayor, you are correct that the urban area will detract from farmlands. That part has been something that I've been pledging to actually try to maintain here as best as I can. And in areas like this, it's not a farmland. I understand my colleague's position on, meeting his integrity of what he's campaigned on, but he also has a duty to actually detract from, taking away from farmlands too. So he's caught in a bit of a pickle there in regards to his integrity, and that's not an easy place based on what my colleague says, that we have hard decisions to make. That being said, the pledge, and what I'd like to send that off to our staff recommendation, basically, is what would that look like in regards to that community benefit for the sewers and the water and stuff that, you know, my colleague just mentioned. I mean, what does that look like in regards to the density? But again, those are all draft plan approval processes and negotiations that will be not part of our decision today. Those are all the comments I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Councilor Scott.
Well, thank you to all the residents who are here tonight and for making your comments over the past number of months and years. I said at a public meeting about a year ago, you've been put through a lot and a lot of uncertainty, and I'm sorry you've had to live with this over your heads for the past number of years and all the strange twists and turns this took process-wise. I don't think that was fair to anyone. Thank you as well for meeting with members of council to share your requests or the ways you want to see this proposal improved. By the same token, thank you to the developer for engaging with council and trying to see where they could address some of those concerns, and our staff for helping facilitate that process. I want to talk about three things, some of which others have picked up on a bit, but the first is process and how I approach development applications in general. The second is the specific comments from the residents, and the third is I actually want to propose an amendment to what would be voted on tonight. Councillor Giordano actually alluded to this, but when it comes to planning matters, we sit almost like a judge or a mediator, and we get the submission from the developer. It's not our plan, it's theirs. Our staff review it, and they go through a process by which they review it in more and more detail. And we hear from the residents who have their concerns, and oftentimes the concerns are about process, because the process not only isn't clear to begin with, but it's been changing before our eyes every 6 or 9 months at the provincial level for the past 6 years. And so where I come down on these applications sometimes is to keep in mind what power I actually have as a municipal councillor. I can vote according to my conscience, and I can vote according to provincial law, and I have to balance both. Because at the end of the day, anything we do on a planning matter can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. There's too many acronyms in municipal politics. That's what others are referencing when they say OLT. The Ontario Land Tribunal upholds provincial law, and provincial law is more permissive towards development than it used to be. And so that brings me to the notion of leverage. If we categorically say no to an official plan amendment tonight, it will be appealed to the OLT and taken out of our hands, and I suspect it would be approved. Instead, I like to be at the table rather than on the menu and trying to say to the developer, here's what I need to see to be in a position to vote yes. I think some of my other colleagues have referenced that. That's how I try to approach things. If this was just a straight yes or no decision that I alone was empowered to make, I know how I'd want to vote. I grew up playing on this golf course. It is very sad that it's closed. It is very unfortunate that the town was never approached to purchase it. I wasn't on council when that happened. Apparently it didn't even come to council at the time. But that's a really unfortunate circumstance. We're not dealing with a perfect world here, and I don't have full authority to make this decision as a council myself because it can be appealed. So with that in mind, that's why I've listened very carefully to residents in these public meetings and over coffee and at meetings with Councillor Dykey and others to hear what you've had to say. You asked for trails as a buffer between the existing homes to create some distance, and the 6 meters is what our average typical trail is around town. Certainly in my neighborhood, we have trails that go in behind existing homes, and the town maintains them. We can agree or disagree over whether that's perfect, but I see that as a reasonable concession. Yes, it didn't include the Line 6 homes, but it did capture Brownlee and parts of Gulfview. We also heard requests for more parkland, and so I asked staff, just out of curiosity, to let me know where it started, because this essentially was a park. It was a golf course. It's a total of 60 hectares. When it was first proposed, there were 13 hectares set aside for green space. Today there are 19 hectares, so about a third of the land, and yes, some of that's stormwater and some of that's environmental protection at the bottom. But we've gone from 13 hectares of parkland to 19. That's positive. I don't know if it satisfies anyone, but it's certainly trending in the right direction, shall we say. I still have concerns from the residents that haven't been addressed. One's very simple, and that's the safety of the old clubhouse. That needs to be secured or perhaps even demolished. And I would hope that can be taken care of in the next couple of days, if not weeks. The concerns raised tonight and in the past about groundwater and wells, you're assuring us that that takes place as a mandatory condition through the plan of subdivision. It needs to. I get that I can't necessarily, though I'm going to try to when I come to my amendment, hold that over you as part of an official plan amendment. But those are very real concerns. I also am going to echo what Councillor Verkuyk said. We built the hub at 177 Church. We got a federal grant to cover some of the funds. I'd rather take that $12 million for community benefit in the neighborhood and look at things like urbanizing Brownlee or Golfview, whether that's sewers, whether that's sidewalks, whether that's just repairing the damn road because it needs it. If we're going to have the $12 million, I think it should start with the residents in the neighborhood. If for no other reason, then you're the ones who are going to see the thing in your backyard if and when it's built. Creeks and drainage from line 6. There was a gentleman who invited us to see the creek in his backyard. I want to make sure that that is adequately covered off because in the draft plan of subdivision, it looks like there's some backyards that would have a creek in them, and I want to make sure how that works. We're being asked tonight to approve an official plan amendment to put this in the urban boundary. In fact, we're being asked to request Simcoe County initiate that process. It would still come back to us for a final approval as an official plan amendment. There'd still have to be a zoning bylaw amendment, and then the plan of subdivision and site plan is now delegated by the province to staff. So by my count, what you're asking for tonight doesn't even get you 2/4 of the way there to shovels in the ground. There's a lot of game left to be played, so to speak, and a lot of opportunities to try and address the residents' concerns, which I'm going to try to do in a minute through an amendment as well. But I go back to that idea of leverage. If there is a essentially gun to my head that you can appeal this, and the province is, I'm going to mix the metaphor, but the province has stacked the deck in favor of development at the OLT, I have to be mindful of that because if I refuse to work on behalf of the residents to see concessions and it's taken away from me by a tribunal, that's something I need to be mindful of. So how do I actually ultimately come down on this? In any negotiation, in any situation with leverage, I'm going to pick up on gestures of goodwill. I mentioned earlier there's been a lot of process and it's been a roundabout and kind of convoluted and confusing series of schemes. Strong mayor powers and CHIAs and MZOs and all these requests for, well, can we have special treatment or can we prioritize or rush this or this scheme, that scheme? I actually appreciate that we're going back to the regular process tonight and starting with an official plan amendment and saying we're going to work our way through step by step the good old-fashioned way so we can hear from residents. So I'm going to propose an amendment tonight, and my vote is conditional on whether this amendment passes. I don't know if the clerk has it, but I can read it. And that is that the applicant and staff have clear regard to addressing the comments raised by the public and members of council throughout the development process when finalizing the zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision. Because I want to make sure that if we vote in favor of an official plan amendment tonight, we're doing so in order to continue to have the leverage and the clear direction that the concerns raised have to be addressed. Whether I satisfy anyone or not with what I just laid out, I've satisfied myself that I'm taking this seriously and I'm trying my best with the limited power I have to hear the residents' concerns and get as much of them implemented as possible. So I'll conclude there, but I would like to move that amendment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for those comments. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Harper. Okay, so any clarification that's required for that amendment? Okay, questions or comments? Councillor Verkuyk?
Yeah, I have a question. We keep always being fearful of an appeal to the OLT. Sometimes, yeah, just let them appeal. But this is an official plan amendment. This isn't a zoning thing that is in contradiction to provincial policy. This is actually part of our official plan. Yes, we have 1,100 acres that we need to designate for growth to 2051, but that should all be done as a process. This Yeah, they can appeal it, but I don't think they have grounds for appeal.
Thanks for your question. Would you like to answer that since you put the amendment?
So it's not exactly on the amendment. The one thing I forgot to add about the OLT appeal is we're also in a situation where our staff are recommending this. So if it were to be appealed, we'd have to go find new experts to argue our side. I just put that out there. But I actually think the CIO should answer Councillor Verkruijk's question because it's a fair one.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight.
So I think the question was, or the comment was, what are the grounds for an appeal? As I mentioned earlier, the approval authority for official plan amendments, zoning amendments, and plans of subdivision is required to make a decision within specified timeframes. It varies by application type. All of those applications are in front of council, and we are past that timeframe for approval, well past it for all. So whether it's this situation or a similar situation, an applicant could appeal that lack of, on the basis of lack of decision, and take the whole package, so the official plan amendment, the zoning amendment, and the subdivision application to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a hearing to argue their case in front of the tribunal.
Okay, Councillor Dykey.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. There was a question that it wasn't answered. Why wasn't there an easement behind the 6 homes on the 6th line? And I'm surprised tonight there isn't the residents from Inverness that haven't spoken because they had during the public meetings they had a lot to say, and it's unfortunate. I don't know if they never got notified or whatever the case may be. But Inverness, they had lots to say when I went door to door, and you know, and they don't have the walkway in the back. I just wondered if you could clarify that that walkway situation, and also who's going to maintain it in your subdivision agreement.
If I could, the request for a walkway or a separation between the new housing and the existing estate housing was something that was put to us by your staff as an idea that they thought would be helpful in trying to keep the estate housing separate from the new housing. That was never, we were never asked to consider anything on the 6th line or the 5th line. So it wasn't never put to us that way. We never had that discussion.
The residents have, you know, expressed an interest. That came as a ward councillor. They've approached me, and they have an interest. They would like to have a buffer, as well as the people in Inverness. They would also like to have a buffer. That, you know, I think it's fair if you're going to treat everybody equally. I think that's something that should be considered. And another point is, at a future date, I would like to see a motion that any money, whatever happens in this situation, any money that is raised for capital, that does go back into Brownlee for second coat of asphalt or septic or water to save their wells, as well as everything's dealt with Brownlee and as well as Gulfview. So those are my points. Unfortunately, I still feel that not all the concerns have been addressed by the residents, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Dykey. You're passionate about it, and so you should be to represent your residents in the ward. I think what you're asking, and to protect that, I think honestly that amendment that's up there captures that, because when the time is right, this is dealing with going into the official plan. That would capture what you're trying to say, and that would be the time to do it. But anyway, I think your points are noted by staff and by the applicant. I have Councillor Harper on this amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, my colleagues, for these comments, and to Councillor Scott for the amendment here. This one actually really talks about putting a little condition in here, and if you actually just read the report from Simcoe County, they put their own conditions on here, contingent based upon LSRCA, all these other you know, basically they had to get the, oh, what's the word? Water or like, you know, all the, yeah, hydrology and geology, all those like basically reports back have to be approved and actually satisfy Simcoe County before they actually consider it. So there's still a lot of legwork to do. This actually just helps. I like the amendment because it actually puts a little bit of our own conditions on it as well. Kind of exciting what we did with the MZO, the contingencies. This really puts it in good faith of actually working with the developer and the actual residents at the same time. That part I like about this is that money in regards to the contingency, whether it's 12 million, 9 million, 8 million, that money is really going to come back to this council, and this council is really going to have to get to make that decision based on a staff report on costs, and that will be put on us to actually provide that community benefit and what that looks like. So I like that. I think that was a really great idea by my colleague over here. Even though he was against it, he actually had a really good point, putting that community benefit back into this area. I think it would enhance that. It would meet my counselor colleague over here, who's always talking about, well, how does it benefit the community? And you know what? I'm liking that the amendments for seeing it for the first time. So thank you, Councilor Scott.
Good, thank you. If it's something new, then I'll go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to call the vote. Go ahead.
So, as we're listening to the amendment and everything else, the one thing that I look at is that, and Councilor Verkeik brought this up, I think, but council actually has weight. We have weight. If we say no and we vote no, the province will look at that when it goes to the province. Well, why is the council against it? I'm not a gambler. I'm not a risk taker. I like to have control. I like that this amendment puts maybe a minuscule, a little bit more control into the situation. How much weight does it have? I don't know, but I think at this point I'm not going to support anything on this. I just don't want the subdivision to take place. I think council has weight, and I think if we say no to the subdivision based on what we've seen in the past, we've had lots of opportunity to have this draft plan or site plan in the past be revised. That they've been fantastic at revising it. It's just not to something that I'm comfortable with.
Okay, thank you. Mayor?
Just to remind council, I want to say a few words in regards to the developer. The developer has been actually working with us for a long time. I can tell you when this first came to us, way back when Rob Keffer was the mayor, they came to us with this opportunity to do this, and we asked them to keep the golf course open. They did. They came to us looking for an MZO. We said, no, we don't want to go the MZO route. They came to us with the CHIA. We said, no, we don't want to go the CHIA route. We have strong mayor powers. No, we don't want to go that route. We want to go the way we're going. This is an OPA. This is the way we should do it. It meets the PPS. It meets the county's official plan. It meets our official plan. If you vote it down, they've been to the OLT and they put that on hold. They put that on hold. It's in the report. They can go back to the OT, open that report, and we're done. You get no control. They go down there with an OPA, a zoning bylaw, and a site plan, draft a site plan. You're done. It's out of control. We did it. This council did it with the cemetery on the 13th line. We sat there. We had a poor report from people that came to us on the cemetery for 13th line. I said, no way I want to go to the, I want to support it going back to staff so we could work with them. Council voted against it. They went to the OT. They won. They won that appeal. You don't win at the OT. You lose control. We have control with this system right now. We keep it within our realm of making sure we do the right thing here. This report talks about what the residents have talked about. We have been there, listening. You're not going to get 100% agreement here. You're not going to get 100% of what you want. But do the best to get what we can. And we've done that. The developer has listened. So whether you call them the big bad people or not, homes have to be built. We have to be substantial. In the PPS, it talks about being a sustainable system. That's what we got to get to. Whether we like this or not, we got to get to this. And if you let it go to the OT, it's gone. We're going to lose it. There's no offense of us. We're going to lose it. So be careful. So I'm in support, and I hope everybody really looks at this.
Scott, Okay, go ahead, because otherwise I'm going to call.
Not
the vote.
only is this going to be quick, it's actually going to be on the amendment. Even if you're against the thing overall, I would hope you'd still vote in favor of adding this into the recommendation as an added layer of protection.
Thank you. Now, you have asked for a recorded vote. Okay, Madam Clerk, go ahead, please, on the amendment.
Okay, for the recorded vote in the amendment in front of you, please state yes in support and no in opposition. Councillor Peter Dyke. Councillor Joe Giordano. Councillor Nicholas Harper.
Yes.
Councillor Jonathan Scott.
Yes.
Councillor Ben Verkuyk.
No.
Deputy Mayor Sandu.
Yes.
Mayor Leduc.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has carried. The amendment has carried.
Thank you. Now we're back to the main motion as amended. And the recorded vote has been requested again. Please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so for the recorded vote on the main motion as amended, Councillor Peter Dyke. Councillor Joe Giordano.
No.
Councillor Nicholas Harper.
Yes.
Councillor Jonathan Scott.
Yes.
Councillor Ben Verkuyk.
No.
Deputy Mayor Sandu.
Yes.
Mayor Leduc.
Yes.
Oh. The main motion as amended has carried.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, colleagues. That was very good discussion. This is not the point of the end of the point. It's the start process. There's many opportunities still to address the concerns and comments and questions from the residents, especially with that amendment in there. So with that, I have a recommendation that the Committee of the Whole adjourn at 10:02 p.m. Moved by Councillor Harper, Councillor Verkuyk, all in favor? Thanks. Carried.
Sorry, we're still in council. We're still in council. Thank you. We will actually cut. We won't be very long. We'll be a few minutes, and then we'll be able to answer your questions. Thank you. Didn't waste anything. Thank you. So we're moving on to reconvene regular council at 10:03. Committee minutes recommendations. We have none. No bylaw, no business bylaws. 19, recommendation that bylaws 2025, 38, 39, and 40 be passed. 38 is development engineering fees update. 39 is final tax levy bylaw. And 40 is the Hollow Marsh Drainage Systems Joint Municipal Service Board levy bylaw. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Verkuyk. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No notice of motions tonight? None. Okay, we're on to announcements, general announcements. We have proclamations and flag raisings. There we are. World Autism Day, April 2nd. We have the flag raising will be held April 2nd at the courthouse. CALSA Day was held April 13th. It was a great turnout at the courthouse. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for stepping in. I wasn't available that day. Thank you very much. And then we have National Youth Week. It's May 1st to May 7th. Flag raising ceremony will be held May 1st at 3:30 at the Bradford Leisure Center. Up and coming events. We have the community cleanup. Council, tomorrow we'll be doing some cleanup here in town. It goes from April 21st to 27th. If you want to come out and help us, please go to www.townofbwg.com/cleanup. We also have the traffic calming program. We have our PIC coming up. It's Thursday, April 24th, 4 to 8 p.m., right at the Leisure Center in the community corner, right in the front there. And then we have April Fool's Day, which is Sunday, April 26th. That's a fun event. Please come out and join us from 12 to 5 at the community center also. More announcements. We have upcoming events. So we have the Nature's Emporium Walk for South Lake. That is on April 26th at 8 a.m. So please get out, and if we can, council, I don't know if you've all signed up, but please join us for that walk. It's raising funds for South Lake Hospital, and we certainly need to help out there when we can. And there is a challenge from the communities. I know Aurora's won that for many, many years, but as long as we don't come in last, hopefully we don't want to come in last. So hopefully everyone can help out. And then we have a public meeting on April 29th at the Zima Room, the BWG Public Library and Cultural Center zoning bylaw amendment, PIC. So come out and join us on that one, April 29th, 2025 at 7 p.m. right here in the Zima Room. And then we have other events and campaigns up and coming council advisory meetings. So we have the Green Initiatives advisory meeting on April 23rd, 6:30. Large Engineering Room 305, the Municipal Heritage Committee on April 24th, 6 p.m. Again at the Large Engineering Boardroom at 305 Barrie. Regular Council and Committee Hall on May 6th, 7 p.m. The Zima Room right here again. And we have the Mayor and Council's Golf Tournament on Friday, June 13th. Come out and support if you can. Come out and play. We'd love to have you there. So save the date, Friday, June 13th, 2025. Funds this year are being raised for the 100th anniversary of the Hall of Marsh and park improvements. And holiday closures. So happy Easter to everyone. So we have a holiday closure this weekend. We have our mid-offices are closed on the April 18th and the 21st, which is the Friday and the Monday. We have no regular transit service on April 18th to the 21st. Our public library is closed from the 18th to 20th and 21st. And Leisure Center is closed on the 18th and open regular hours on the 21st. So just to be aware of our offices that are open and closed. Have a happy and safe holiday long weekend, everyone. Happy Easter. All right. County Council update, is there any? There's no County Council update?
Your Worship, the only one thing was that the brush drop-off due to the ice storm was extended free of charge to all the sites till end of May.
For that, yes. A lot of our northern municipalities were hit pretty hard, so they've extended the brush cleanup for all of county. So good to know that. Okay, so we're done, council. We'll do the confirmed proceedings. Recommendation that bylaw 2025-41, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the regular council and committee whole meeting dated April 15, 2025, be enacted. Moved by Councilor Dykey, seconded by Councilor Kike. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then adjournment. Recommendation that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:08. Moved by Councilor Giordano, seconded by Councilor Ferragini. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much.